So good evening, everyone. Right. To do a brief recap of the Pitt India Act of 1784, we are basically discussing that how the East India Company gradually established, मतलब how the British state gradually established control over the East India Company. उसमें सबसे पहले regulation establish हुआ through the Regulating Act of 1773. In that regulation, they are basically choosing two class monitors, right? One in India, that is your Governor General of Bengal, and another in London, that is your Court of Directors or the top decision making body of the East India Company. They are making East India Company responsible for the conduct, or they are making the Court of Directors in London responsible for conduct of the East India Company officials in India. Right. In India, they are also subordinating governors of Bombay and Madras to Governor General of Bengal. Right. So therefore, Governor General is simply just a name. Right. In all other matters, Governor of Bombay, Madras and Bengal, they are equal, except for the fact that in matters of war and peace, who is the top decision making body? It is your Governor General of Bengal. आपका polity start हो गया? नहीं हुआ है? So anyways, so there is this concept of lists, right? That is, there is something called 7 schedule, right? So we can say that with respect to the Bombay, Madras and your Bengal presidency, it is Governor General of Bengal who has control over the subject of war. Right, but otherwise in Bombay it is Governor of Bombay, in Madras it is Governor of Madras, and it is Governor of Bengal or Governor General of Bengal in Bengal. Only in the matters of war and peace he has some kind of power, right? So therefore that is what is there, right? Now in the Pitt India Act of 1784, this particular regulation gets converted into control, and for that they establish in London something called Board of Control. The Board of Control has very, very senior members of the British government or the British state, right? One of the secretaries of state is there, who is the president of the Board of Control. Plus you have Chancellor of Exchequer. The rationale for having Chancellor of Exchequer is that the British state has given 10 million pounds of loan, that is public money, has been given to the East India Company, and therefore controlling power should also be with a person who is the Chancellor of Exchequer, that is the custodian of the public money. Right, तो उसके पास भी कुछ control रहना चाहिए, so that is the rationale that he is there. 4 Privy Council members are also present. We discussed that what is a Privy Council, right? How this control operates, the Board of Control will be able to receive all incoming and outgoing letters regarding the civil, military and revenue matters of the company in India. Civil, military, revenue matters, they are called public matters. They are called public affairs. Public affairs are different from private affairs. Private affairs are of companies when they are doing business. Public affairs is when any entity is in the domain of public governance. It is in the domain of civil services, or it is in the domain of policy making and all of these things. That is when it is behaving like a state, right? Plus it will be able to pass binding orders to the Court of Directors of the East India Company and also directly to the Governor General of Bengal. And therefore this is how the control is established. Another feature is there, from now onwards the principal servants of the company in India, that is your governors, including the Governor General and Commander in Chief, plus others also, they can be, these are the main ones, they can be appointed only after approval of the Crown. And what do you mean by the President of India? By the President of India, you simply mean the Prime Minister, that is the Government of India. Right? So therefore here, because democracy is present, so here by Crown you simply mean the British government which is in power. And therefore we can say that now the top people of the company in India, they are the right hand man of the British state and not of the company. Right? In fact, one example is when Wellesley 9805, 1798 to 1805, when he restarted the policy of expansion using the fear created by Napoleon, at that point of time, East India Company Court of Directors, they did not want empire building to happen, they did not want war expenditure. But because Wellesley was the man of the state and he convinced the state, therefore East India Company is feeling helpless, and Wellesley through his own personality is able to do empire building. This was an incident where company did not want empire building, but the person who was heading the company in India, because he was the right hand man of the state and because he had convinced the British state that we should do empire building to counter the threat of Napoleon, to counter Mysore, therefore still empire building took place. Right? So therefore this is a live example of sub-imperialism. That is, his personality is overpowering the will of the court of directors of the company. Why? Because there is system of double government. In the public matters, the top boss is the British state, represented by the board of control. And in the commercial matters of the company, the top boss is the court of directors of the East India Company. So if Wellesley is able to convince the board of control or the British government for empire building, right, then empire building will take place because top boss has given a yes, a go ahead. Right? So therefore, that is the system of double government. Double government is when you separate subjects at a horizontal level. Right? So therefore, this is double government. Right? Like we discussed dual government in Bengal, Diwani and Nizamat, and two separate bosses. Similarly, double government. Double is synonym for dual. Dual government, double government. Right? This is a horizontal concept. Later, when we discuss something called diarchy, that is also a symbol, that is also a synonym of this double government, dual government. There will come a time when we'll discuss Government of India Act 1919. And at what horizontal level we'll discuss the Government of India Act 1919? At the provincial level. That means not at the center, but at the state government level. At the state government level, we will see that the subjects माने कौन सा काम किसका है. जैसे subjects माने आप ministry समझ सकते हैं, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Home, which manages the law and order, etc. etc. The subjects at the province level, they were horizontally divided. एक का top boss था governor, and दूसरे का top boss था आपका एक समझ लिए Indian ministers, right? That is called diarchy. That is, diarchy is equal to dual government is equal to double government. That is, you are dividing the subject as a horizontal level. In fact, this element of dual government is also present in subsidiary alliance. Why? Because you are at the Indian state level and there you divide the subjects into two parts, foreign affairs and defense. That goes to the Britishers, and rest of the subjects, they remain with the, that is the domestic affairs, they remain with the Indian ruler. Right? If there is this horizontal division of subjects, can there be vertical division of subjects between the center and the state? Yes, there can be, and that is called, usually that is referred to as the system of federal distribution of subjects or federalism. Right? And in polity, there is this seventh schedule where you have central list of subjects, state list of subjects, and concurrent list of subjects. Right? So that is vertical division of power. So जब भी आप vertical sharing of power की बात करते हैं, usually you talk about federalism. Right? And horizontal की जब बात करते हैं, तो ये double government, dual government, these kind of words they come in. Right? So therefore, this is what is there. Another important feature is that dual control. Vertically, if I see, if I focus on the person called Mr. Governor General of Bengal, now he has two bosses, right? And both can give him orders. एक is boss and another is boss ka boss. Boss ka boss is board of control and boss is court of directors, right? So therefore, he has two bosses, right? This is called dual control. This is called dual control. For example, in Delhi, like police is there. So at times when law and order situation, it is complex, right? What happens? The commissioner of police can directly talk with the SHO, right? And that is when the SHO starts having two bosses. One is a IPS officer who just got recruited and is at ACP level or DCP level, and another is the commissioner of police, right? If DGP is giving direct orders to the SHO, and in the middle there is also SP. So therefore, we can say that the SHO is having two bosses, right? When the top ka top person starts directly talking to you, when your boss ka boss starts directly talking to you, then it is called dual control or two bosses. When he does not directly talk to you, when he gives orders to your boss and then your boss gives order to you, that is a clear chain of command and there is single boss of everyone. right? So two bosses क्या है? If your boss का boss can directly talk to you, bypassing your immediate boss, that is called dual control, right? That is called dual control. So these were the primary features. बाकी जो features थे, they were smaller features, right? For example, the size of the council of the Governor General of Bengal, it is reduced from 4 to 3. Plus, Governor General of Bengal, he is given 2 votes, a normal vote and a casting vote, right? So therefore, even if he has support of one person, then he will be able to have his way, right? So therefore, a effort was made to resolve the problem of indecision. Also, the criticism of the Regulating Act of 1773, that governors of Bombay and Madras in matters of war and peace, they could act independently in emergency circumstances. What is emergency circumstance? It is not properly defined by the Regulating Act of 1773. Now that is relatively more properly defined, and therefore that vagueness, it is attempted to be removed, right? This kind of scenario, it is being done. Also, a council is created for Governor of Bombay, plus another council is created for Governor of Madras, and those have 3 members. माने 1 plus 3, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 3. ऐसा system establish हो गया है, right? Plus governors of Bombay and Madras, they are subordinated to Governor General of Bengal, not just in matters of war and peace, but also in matters of revenue. Can we say that 1773 centralization of power in GG Bengal started and it increased in Pitt's India Act 1784? Because now he can give you directions even in the matter of land revenue, right? And therefore, that is why the permanent settlement of 1793, it is also present in North Madras. Otherwise, Governor General of Bengal has jurisdiction only over Bengal. It has jurisdiction over Madras and Bombay, but only in matters of war and peace, right? So therefore, because Cornwallis and then Wellesley, they wanted extension of the permanent settlement in Madras as well. That is why in North Madras you have application of permanent settlement of 1793. But just after 8 years, Thomas Munro, who is a senior official, he is able to convince the court of directors that we should go for Ryotwari settlement in Madras and not permanent settlement. That is why from 1801 till 1807, Ryotwari settlement operated in Madras. After that, Thomas Munro went to England, तो वापस से वो खत्म हो गया. फिर when he became governor of Madras in 1820, then Ryotwari was reapplied on the whole of Madras, and उसके बाद वो वैसा ही रहा, it did not change, right? So therefore, that is a summary of the last class. Now we come to what you call as the impact of the Pitt's India Act of 1784. One impact is, for example, dual control. In practice, it meant no control. Why? Because I could play my 2 masters. We have done this. See, my whole agenda of doing fun, etc., is to basically simplify the things, right? So at least even if some of us are able to understand it at a local level, so same thing. For example, we have done this in our own family lives also. Dual control. We have 2 bosses, mummy and papa, and we have played those 2 bosses, right? So therefore, I am getting late, and I was to reach at my home at 7 p.m., but now it is 10 p.m., right? And mummy is calling me and shouting at me that why are you late? So therefore, I can drop a message to papa, and that is some code word that please you handle it, okay, संभाल लेना. And here you tell your mom that I had already informed father. उन्होंने नहीं बताया क्या आपको that I'll be late today, right? So therefore now mummy is like आने दे तेरे पापा को. So therefore papa receives the message, let's say, right? So therefore this similarly something is there with respect to father. Then you can say अरे मम्मी से बात तो हो गई थी, or I had a talk with mother, right? उनसे पूछो, मैंने तो उनसे बात कर ली थी. Why? So basically, either the family में तो mom dad they meet every day, right? And they can reveal your jhol, right? Until unless you have setting with one of them, right? But here you see, like board of control is there, right? Or in bureaucracy also, many of the times it happens that, for example, my commissioner would directly give orders to me, right? My additional commissioner who is there in between me and the commissioner, he will not be knocking at the door or of commissioner and asking him repeatedly that did you actually give this order? Did you actually give this order? Did you actually give this order? If he does that, he will get a very good scolding from the commissioner. Right? That बार बार क्या पूछते रहते हो? हाँ दिया था, तुमसे पूछ के दूंगा मैं order. Right? So therefore this kind of scenario it is there, and as a result, usually you can play the two bosses. Also, at times, directions they can be very vague. For example, let's say the one of the boss, that is boss ka boss, let's say, he says, do everything to curtail this situation or to control this situation. Now, your personality is of empire building, you started a war. Now, the court of directors, which is concerned, which is more accountable to the shareholders, it may be concerned that war expenditure will take place, and it asks you a question that why did you start a war? This is wrong. I had not given any direction. Right? So you can say, see, the board of control had said that I should do everything in my capacity to control the situation, and therefore I felt that war is the only way through which I could control this situation. Right? So therefore it is a very vague kind of direction that do everything. And frankly, in day-to-day life, in day-to-day administration, ऐसा जनरल डायरेक्शन टाइप से मिल जाता है कि यार संभालो इसे. अब कैसे संभालना है? ठीक है, आप अपने एक बॉस को बोल सकते हो कि बॉस के बॉस ने कहा था संभालो इसे, तो मैं संभाल रहा हूँ. हाउ कैन यू डू? अब एग्जैक्टली थोड़ी एक एक स्टेप बताएगा बॉस आपका कि अभी ये करो, अभी ये करो. स्पेशली व्हेन इंडिया इज सो फार अवे, व्हेन द बॉस एंड द बॉस का बॉस दे डू नॉट नो एग्जैक्ट सिचुएशन. इट इज एक्चुअली यू हु नोज द एग्जैक्ट सिचुएशन ऑन द ग्राउंड, बिकॉज आप इंडिया में हो, ना ही आपका बॉस इंडिया में, ना ही आपका बॉस का बॉस इज इन इंडिया. राइट? सो देयरफॉर दिस इज हाउ यू कैन manipulate the two bosses, and therefore in practice there was actually independent function of the Governor General of Bengal. He in practice he had no boss, or many of the cases he can play the two bosses. Right? So that is like one of the impact which is there. Second is with respect to indecision. So with respect to indecision in the Governor General of Bengal's council, yes, 2 votes were given, right, but still veto power was not given. Right? And see, if repeatedly any person is using a casting vote, if repeatedly a tie-breaking kind of vote it is used, so it is like a special power. So if repeatedly you are using the casting vote, it actually creates a negative impression about you, that somewhere you are overturning the majority opinion bar. Right? So therefore the problem of indecision, right, technically there is no problem. Even if one member is supporting me, then it is fine. Right? But still, it is written in the books also that the problem of indecision, it improved, but not properly, because veto power was not given to the Governor General of Bengal over his council. Right? And therefore he is feeling frustrated कि मुझे एक को भी क्यों पटाना पड़ रहा है. He is feeling frustrated that why I have to convince even one member. Right? And why I have to use this casting vote etc. system. Right? So therefore that indecision problem it is continuing. Right? So therefore this kind of scenario it is there. So anyways, write down 2 points लिख लिया. इसको करते हैं. डुअल कंट्रोल. हाँ जी. द COD is accountable to the board of control. I have just told you. Yes. कोर्ट ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स का बॉस है board of control in matters of civil, military and revenue matters. So obviously a subordinate is always accountable to the boss. A subordinate is always accountable to the boss. The boss can give binding orders also. And simple point is, if my boss ka boss is with me, then what can my boss do? तभी तो आप लोग joint family, have you stayed in joint family? Right? So has it not happened with you that you, touch wood, I hope, you experience the love of your grandfather, right? So has it not happened to you that at times you patao your grandfather so that the father he can be nullified? Right? So therefore the grandson in alliance with the grandfather and looking at the father कि हाँ आप बताओ खिलाने कैसे नहीं लेके जाओगे, घुमाने कैसे नहीं लेके जाओगे. My grandfather is standing with me and grandfather is giving order to father कि लेके जाओ इसे घुमाने. So when your boss ka boss is in your pocket, the grandson and grandfather alliance, or granddaughter and grandfather alliance, father becomes dysfunctional. Right? So therefore that is the thing. So write down dual control of GG Bengal, dual control of GG Bengal, dual control of GG Bengal, that is two bosses, dash BOC and COD of EIC, BOC and COD of EIC dash in practice meant no control, dash in practice meant no control, in practice meant no control, as he could play his two masters against each other, as he could play his two masters against each other, as he could play his two masters against each other. Next point, still no veto power, still no veto power, still no veto power to GG Bengal over his council. Still no veto power to GG Bengal over his council. Therefore, over his council. Therefore, in decision in Supreme Council of Bengal continued. Therefore, in decision in Supreme Council of Bengal continued. Improvement hoga but continued. Couple of questions are there. Since we are beginning the legal journey, that's why I'm answering very basic questions also. Sir, is there any right to governor of Madras and Bombay other than war and peace like foreign policy? With respect to matters of war and peace, the rights they are with the Governor General of Bengal. The governors of Madras and Bombay, they do not have any rights. They only have the right that they can act independently in emergency circumstances. Otherwise, with respect to domestic affairs of territory under control, all powers in Madras are with Governor of Madras. With respect to all matters except for war and peace, right? Before Pitt's India Act 1784, all powers in Bombay are with Governor of Bombay, right? After 1784 Pitt's India Act, in matters of land revenue also, some directions can be given by the GG Bengal to governors of Bombay and to Governor of Madras, right? Sir, is EIC acting as a puppet? Yes, now control has been established over the East India Company. So therefore, it is acting as a puppet. Sir, who will appoint Board of Control and COD? So simply look at the composition. In last class also, I had answered this question, so please be more attentive. Court of Directors, they are the top body of a company. And who is the owner of company? The shareholders. And therefore, who will appoint the, in matters of democracy, it is like a company is functioning in a democratic manner. The shareholders, they will appoint the directors of the company, right? Next component is who appoints the Board of Control. So Board of Control, it is basically having one of the cabinet minister, 4 privy council members and 1 chancellor of exchequer. So it is the British government, right? Or the British parliament also, because supremacy of parliament is there. They will be the people who will be appointing. Please explain the responsibility of Supreme Court of Calcutta and GG Bengal with Council in Regulating Act of 1773. So Ayush, please, it is personal advice, do extra focus on CSAT, otherwise there will be a lot of problem for you, because I cannot explain it in more clear terms. The simple point is, if there is territory of Calcutta, then all cases, they go to Supreme Court of Calcutta. Isme kya confusion hai bhai? Any case between 2 Indians in Calcutta will go where? To Supreme Court at Calcutta. Any case involving 2 Firangis in Calcutta will go to where? Supreme Court of Calcutta. Any case involving 1 Firangi and 1 Indian in Calcutta will go to Supreme Court of Calcutta. इसमें क्या confusion है? And second, मैंने आपको कहा कि अब पूरे बंगाल में, मतलब अब रेस्ट जो बंगाल है, उसमें any case which involves a Britisher, case will go to Supreme Court of Calcutta. माने कि 1 case between 2 Britishers, Supreme Court of Calcutta, 1 British, 1 Indian, Supreme Court of Calcutta. एक exception है बस, where the British person involved was a government officer and he was acting in his official capacity when that particular offense or when that particular act जिसकी वजह से वो court case बना है, then it will be under the Governor General of Bengal, right? So automatically, if in rest of Bengal, if we are in rest of Bengal and there is a court case which involves 1 Indian and another Indian, the court case will go to GG Bengal, right? जो बच गया वो यही सिनेरियो बच गया ना, तो सीजैट पे थोड़ा फोकस करना आयुष, और जिसको नहीं समझ में आया वो भी. निजामत वगैरह सब खत्म हो गई है आफ्टर 1772. Dual government was there from 1765 to 1772. हाँ वो बट अभी लिखवाया नहीं है इसलिए नहीं बोल रहे सर इफ जीजी बंगाल हैज कमर्शियल अफेयर देन ही रिपोर्ट टू द कोर्ट ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स एंड इफ जीजी बंगाल हैज सीएमआर अफेयर then first he reports to the COD, then COD reports to BOC regarding the CMR affairs. Is it right, sir? Yes, it is right. But because there is direct communication between the Board of Control and the GG Bengal, then he can also directly report to the BOC also, क्योंकि उसके दो बॉस हैं. One boss का boss is in direct communication with me, right? So therefore, Board of Control can directly also ask for information by passing a binding order कि give me this information to the GG Bengal. So yesterday what I told was from bottom of my heart in a positive way. I like your face, sir. Thank you. अच्छा अच्छा वॉर वाला तो वॉर में जाने वाला मेरे चेहरे से क्या रिलेशन एनीवेज द jurisdiction of Supreme Court was over all British subjects residing in Bengal and their native servants. That is 1773. In this line, does it include all British officials in official and personal capacity? Yes. And Indian natives not associated with the British too. Indian natives who are servants of the British, they are there. Sir, it is possible that a person who is already a Governor General of Bengal also occupied any other post like Commander-in-Chief. Well, that provision will come in after the Amending Act of 1786. Sir, what is veto power? The power to overrule everyone. 4 people are there or 3 people are there and they are saying no to a decision. I am the boss. I say decision will still take place. Therefore, I have veto power. 3 people, 4 people are there, they are saying yes to a decision. I am saying no, it will not take place, and therefore it will not take place. So therefore, when I have a overruling power, then it is called veto power. Pappu Kumar is saying, I love you, sir. I love you too, Pappu. Vanshika is asking, how can GG Bengal play the two bosses if all letters are being sent to the court of directors? As I told you, that the language in the letters, they can be subjective. Also, since Board of Control is directly in communication with the GG Bengal, can there not be letters exchanged directly between the BOC and the GG Bengal by skipping the court of directors? That means कोर्ट ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स को हो सकता है कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन ना पता हो जो सिर्फ बीओसी को पता है और जीजी बंगाल को पता है एंड देयरफॉर जीजी बंगाल कैन प्ले द टू बॉसेस at least he can play the COD very well, right? So that is what is there. Sir, which law applied to the converted Christians before 1813? Done by the Portuguese. So law of the territory will apply, right? Law of the territory will apply. So depending on which territory the thing it is operating, right? So anyways, next point right now. Abhi nahi, abhi likho please. Conflict between GG Bengal, conflict between GG Bengal and CIC. CIC is Commander in Chief. CIC of EIC Army. Conflict between GG Bengal and CIC of EIC Army. As decision of war and peace, as decision of war and peace with GG Bengal, as decision of war and peace with GG Bengal, but right to use army was with CIC. ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के लिखें GG Bengal orders war, comma, CIC quite inactive, comma, GG Bengal roars, GG Bengal roars, दहाड़ रहा है, war, comma, CIC says, chill dude. I'll take care. Chill, dude, I'll take care. Your job is done. Your job is done. And now I am in charge. Chill, dude. Your job is done. Now I am in charge. Comma. GG Bengal. 3 sad smileys. GG Bengal. 3 sad smileys. GG Bengal. 3 sad smileys. Very so. Simply what has happened? The decision of war, that is there with the GG Bengal. But after that, when to actually move the troops, when to actually launch a battle, from which particular side to attack, at which particular speed to attack, right? All of these decisions, they are with the Commander-in-Chief of the EIC Army. And therefore, this is leading to conflict of personality. The GG Bengal wants certain actions on the ground by the troops. But the Commander-in-Chief is saying, आपका काम था ये घोषित करना, your work was only to declare that there is war. Now, how the war will be fought, it is my decision, right? So therefore, chill karo, relax karo, your job is done, you have declared war, now it is upon me. Now it is upon me. Right? It happened in the 1971 war between India and Pakistan. Indira Gandhi, she responded to the responded to the Pakistani attack, and counter war was declared on Pakistan. Right? So, anyways, or before that also, so she wanted action as soon as possible, but Manik Shaw did not allow that. So he said that we should wait for winters, only then we should move ahead. Right? So therefore, fine, you have declared the intent that India should act. Now it is upon me how to handle the war. Right? So therefore, this kind of scenario. Right? So, anyways, next point. There was ban on imperial expansion. There was ban on imperial expansion via Pitt's India Act. There was ban on imperial expansion via Pitt's India Act. 1784. There was ban on imperial expansion via Pitt's India Act 1784. As it stated, that conquest in India, as it stated that conquest in India is repugnant. Conquest in India is repugnant. Conquest in India is repugnant. Repugnant means very against. Repugnant to wish, honor and policy of this nation. Which nation? British nation. Conquest of India, conquest in India is repugnant to wish, honor and policy of British nation. Of British nation. Of British nation. Full stop. Of British nation, full stop. This was because this was because of high war expenditure. This was because of high war expenditure. This is because of high war expenditure. In bracket star लगा के 1775-82 First Anglo-Maratha War. 1780-84 Second Anglo-Mysore War. 1780-84 Second Anglo-Mysore War. By EIC. By EIC. And by EIC and American Revolution, American War of Independence and American War of Independence 1776-83. American War of Independence 1776-83 by British government. By British government. So be it the British government or be it the East India Company, both have done war expenditure, right? So here more focus is obviously on East India Company because East India Company's bank account will be different. The government bank account will be different, but the government is concerned that you should not overdo the war expenditure, because just in case if you go bankrupt again, I am totally not in a position to help you because I have just done fighting American War of Independence 1776-83. Right? So brackets close. So these are the war expenditure which have taken place in the recent past, and that is why it is against their wish, honor, and policy to do conquest in India. Right? They are very money-minded persons. If they had been flush with money and then they had said this, then we would have taken it on face value. But the real politic was different, and the face, the mask was different. Right? So the real reason for them announcing that no conquest in India was money, not that they cared about India or Indians, not that they cared about India or Indians. ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के लिखे दोबारा 1789-92 1789-92 1789-92 by Cornwallis 8693 सॉरी मतलब वो तो भूल ही गया 1789-92 थर्ड एंग्लो मैसूर वॉर 1789-92 थर्ड एंग्लो मैसूर वॉर 1789-92 थर्ड एंग्लो मैसूर वॉर by Cornwallis 8693 by Cornwallis 8693 despite ban on conquest because Mysore accepted as exception because Mysore accepted as exception by British government. Accepted as exception by British government. Full stop. Wellesley 9805. Wellesley 9805 changed the policy from 1798. Wellesley 9805 changed the policy from 1798. And expansion resumed. Brackets closed. And expansion resumed. Brackets closed. Right. So what I have made you write down, it is self-explanatory. There was a ban on the conquest by the British Parliament, but still, Third Anglo-Mysore War was fought because Mysore was considered extra dangerous by the Britishers. So therefore, an exception was allowed to the policy of no conquest, and that is why from 1789-92, this particular war is taking place. You were asking some question? Yes. Can you speak a little louder? Huh? In book it is given that veto power was given in the Pitt's India Act. It is wrong. In which book? It is wrong. Then in another book called Spectrum, it is given that veto power was given in the in another book, that is Spectrum, it is given that approval of Crown was required for appointment of the principal servants of the company under the Charter Act of 1793. That is also wrong. Right. So therefore, what I am telling you is correct. Right. Right. There are such errors. In fact, you go to the Google also. So many websites, they keep on copy pasting stuff from here and there. So us prakar se hai. So what I am telling you, it is you're not the first batch who has asked this, right? So therefore, it has been verified, right? It is coming from, for example, in Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, it is clearly given, and Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, Bipin Chandra, these two are considered important or more this thing. In fact, there is an error in Bipin Chandra also, right? तो वो बाद में आता है when we discuss Mahatma Gandhi's Ahmedabad mill strike. So therefore, the information given in Shekhar Bandyopadhyay is contrary to the information with respect to the percentage figure, that how much wage increase the workers demanded, right? So therefore, वो भी मैं आपको ठीक ही बताऊंगा उस टाइम, ठीक है? Next point, right? Amending Act of 1786. Amending Act of 1786. Amending Act of 1786. Amending Act of 1786. So this act is amending the Pitt's India Act of 1784. Amending Act of 1786. First point, gave veto power to G.G. Bengal over his council. Gave veto power to G.G. Bengal over his council. Over his council. In extraordinary circumstances. In extraordinary circumstances. माने कि स्पेशल सर्कमस्टांसेस, इन एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी सर्कमस्टांसेस. Second point, EIC was empowered. EIC was empowered to appoint same man to TWO posts, same man to two posts, of GG Bengal and CIC of EIC Army. Same man to two posts of GG Bengal and CIC of EIC Army. To end conflict. Between the two. To end conflict between the two post holders. To end conflict between the two post holders. To end conflict between the two post holders. Right. So therefore, this kind. In fact, वो थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा डिटेल हो जाता है. वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स, he also, अब वो चलो ज़्यादा, बट जैसे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ कैलकटा और उसके बीच में डिस्प्यूट था. सो therefore वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स मेड दिस एलिजा इम्फ्रे जो भी बंदा था, तो चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ कैलकटा was also made the head of सदर दीवानी अदालत एंड सदर निजामत अदालत for some time, ताकि भैया ये कन्फ्लिक्ट ना हो. राइट. सो therefore if there is conflict between two post holders, एक काम करते हैं, एक ही बंदे को दोनों पोस्ट दे देते हैं, कन्फ्लिक्ट रहेगा ही नहीं. Right. So such provision was made that EIC can appoint same man to both the posts, and therefore, so item full stop. Therefore, Cornwallis 8693. Therefore, Cornwallis 8693 is equal to first GG Bengal to also be CIC. Therefore, Cornwallis 8693 is equal to first GG Bengal to also be CIC. First GG Bengal to also be CIC. In bracket स्टार लगा के लिखिए, Warren Hastings 7385, Warren Hastings 7385 is equal to first GG Bengal. First GG Bengal. William Bentinck 2835 is equal to first GGI. GGI means GG India from 1833. Canning 5662 is equal to first Viceroy from 1858. So these are some of the firsts, right? Warren Hastings was the first GG Bengal because of the Regulating Act of 1773. William Bentinck, because of the Charter Act of 1833, he became the first Governor General of India. Canning 5662 1856-62, he became the first Viceroy from 1858. Right? So these are some of the firsts which are there for the purposes of prelims. Brackets closed. Right. Last line you write down. System of controlling EIC. System of controlling EIC. Set up by Pitt's India Act 1784. System of controlling EIC set up by Pitt's India Act 1784. Pitt's India Act 1784 continued until 1858. With very little change. Continued till 1858 with very little change. Now in the books it is written above system established by the Pitt's India Act 1784 continued more or less unchanged until 1858. I have added the word controlling. कौन सा system? Why? Because then as a student we get confused कि भाई फिर why are you making us read Charter Act of 1793. So many things are mentioned in Charter Act of 1813, Charter Act of 1833, Charter Act of 1853. And then you are telling us that nothing changed. तो ये सब क्या है? Remove it from the syllabus, right? तो ये सब इतना सब क्या है? So basically, what continued unchanged? The system of control. So therefore, what did not change? What did not change was this particular system. This system did not change. Powers of BOC can change, name of the BOC can change, but an authority in London, right? That is, this represents the state. This state having the power to order the headquarters of EIC in London, that is the EIC headquarter in London, and this state having the power to give orders directly to the top man, top EIC man in India, and he having the power to dominate the regional governors, of East India Company presidencies, governors of presidencies of Bombay and Madras. This system did not change. Name of board of control can change. Who will be there in the board of control? That can also change. But yes, BOC, it represents the state, right? Court of Directors, it is the headquarters of the East India Company in London. This BOC is controlling the Court of Directors, can pass binding orders, right? Plus, this Court of Directors can give directions to the GG Bengal. So GG Bengal is under two bosses, and governors of Bombay and Madras, they are under the GG Bengal. Powers of the GG Bengal can further increase. That is, initially it was just war and peace. In 1784, it will become revenue. In 1793, something more. In 1813, something more. In 1833, so much more that GG Bengal will become GG India. So you see, GG Bengal's name is also changing. But is he not still the top EIC man in India? चाहे उसका नाम जीजी इंडिया हो या जीजी बंगाल हो, he is the top EIC man in India. So therefore, all of these names they can change. But this analysis part, that the state is there, that EIC headquarter is there, that there is a top EIC man in India, and below him are the regional governors, right? And how, this is the system of control. These arrows that you see, who can give orders? So these are orders, right? Who can give what kind of orders, right? So these are orders, these lines. Right? He can also give orders. Therefore, this particular system, it did not change. The president of the board of control, there will come a time he will become Minister of Indian Affairs. Right? So therefore, this system will remain more or less unchanged. Right? So this system of control remained unchanged. Right? So therefore, this is the meaning of this system of control, or above did not change. This system of control, this structure established, this organizational kind of structure established, it will not change. Right? बाकी बहुत कुछ चेंज होगा, तभी हम पढ़ेंगे बचे हुए एक्ट्स, बट ये हायरार्की चेंज नहीं होगा. Right? Establishment of a class monitor in India, making the headquarters of East India Company in London accountable. Ability of the state to give direct orders to COD and to GG Bengal. This structure will not change. Right? So this is the meaning of what did not change. This structure did not change. 1858 में क्या होगा? In 1858, COD was ended. Company's rule was ended. And therefore, there is only one boss of GG Bengal. Right? That is this BOC. BOC का नाम change हो गया. वो India Council बन जाएगा. प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल, मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडियन अफेयर्स का नाम दोबारा चेंज हो गया, वो सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट फॉर इंडिया बन जाएगा. राइट? बट स्ट्रक्चर विल चेंज इन 1858. मतलब कि जीजे बंगाल विल हैव ओनली वन बॉस आफ्टर 1858. That is why we said that this structure, it continued more or less unchanged until 1858. right? So that is what is there. Next heading, write down Charter Act 1793. Charter Act 1793. ये बनाया आपने? नहीं बनाया तो बना लीजिए. कौन से वाला? Amending Act Amending Act of 1786. It is basically Pitt's India Amendment Act of 1786. That means you are amending the Pitt's India Act of 1784. Right. So these are separate acts. Charter Act of 1793. It is a separate act. Why it is called Charter Act? Because the primary purpose of this particular act is to renew the charter of the company. Charter of the company was about to come to an end, and therefore primary purpose of the act is renewal of the charter. That is why the name Charter Act of 1793. But apart from the primary purpose, some other things will also be covered in the Charter Act of 1793. Right? 20 years में renewal होता था. Right? So write down charter was renewed for 20 years in these charter acts. Right? So initially when in 1600 the charter came, if you remember, time period was 15 years, 15 years. But once the parliament starts renewing the charter, the time period becomes 20 years. Right? So write down Charter Act 1793 in brackets star लगा के. Very boring. Very boring. Brackets closed. First sub point. Hallmark is equal to concept of civil law. Hallmark is equal to concept of civil law. Introduced. Concept of civil law introduced in India. Concept of civil law introduced in India. See, it would have been beneficial if you had done world history, right? For example, in world history, we talk about Napoleon's civil code of 1804, right? So, what do you mean by the word code? Code is, or what do you mean by codifying, right? Codifying means when you put down something on paper. As soon as you, many of you would have written diary, maybe at some point of time in your life. So therefore, you are codifying your thoughts. When you write a diary, you are codifying your thoughts for the day or what happened in the day. So codification means when you are writing down something, and when you write down something, it becomes fixed, right? For example, you have written down a law. So therefore, अब वो fix हो गया है law. It can be amended, but वो fix हो गया. वो सबको पता है. मतलब अब ऐसा मतलब no one can say day after tomorrow कि नहीं तूने ये थोड़ी कहा था, तूने वो कहा था. Right? No one can say this. So when you have codified something, it is in writing, and therefore it is objectively present for everyone to see. Right? So therefore, when you codify the laws, that means instead of judges acting on their whims and fancies, when they have to give a judgment in line with the written law, right? So therefore this idea, it is like concept of civil law, codification of laws for the purpose of judgment, writing down the laws which will operate in the civil area. Civil area means civilian disputes between you and me, property dispute, some other kind of disputes, contract related disputes. Now, if there is a law for them, so therefore concept of civil law, that in this particular situation this will happen, in that particular situation this will happen. If cheating is done in some property matter, this will be the course of action. If for example, कुछ भी हो सकता है, transfer of property from father to son, or mother child relationship, father son relationship, right? What how अभी मैं थोड़ा सा outside the Indian law domain में जा रहा हूँ, civil law में. For example, how marriages will take place, right? How divorces can take place, which marriages will be legal, which divorces can be legal. If divorce takes place, then what will be the responsibility of the wife? What is the responsibility of the husband after divorce with respect to any money exchange or with respect to custody of the child, etc., etc. These kind of scenarios. So all of this like civilian domain. There are many civil disputes. There are many civil disputes. Not everything is a crime, right? Crime, criminal law, it is when some some body is hurt, right? That's like the simplest way of saying it, or some theft has been done, right? So therefore these can be considered as criminal kind of thing. So criminal law is there and civil law it is there. So concept of civil law it is introduced because now for the first time the Charter Act is going to give orders, and it is going to say that there should be a written law, right? Plus that law should be converted into vernacular languages, that means Indian languages, so that the people who are subjected to that law, उनको भी पता चले कि कानून है क्या, because not many Indians actually know English at that particular point of time, right? So therefore, for example, this kind of scenario, that judges they have to pass written orders. Judges they have to pass written orders, right? So this kind of scenario, when the judges they start functioning on the basis of some written law, when people they start behaving as per a written law in their civilian domain, उसको बोलते हैं सिविल लॉ, ऐसा समझ सकते हैं. इसीलिए वेरी बोरिंग लिखवाया था, बिकॉज कॉन्सेप्ट थोड़ा सा ऐसा लीगल टाइप का, ऐसा फ्लूइड टाइप का सा थोड़ा सा कॉन्सेप्ट है, राइट? सो बट ले दे के यही है, जैसे नेपोलियन ने, एंड कोडिफाइंग दिस लॉ इज वेरी टफ, राइट? इन इंडिया डू वी हैव एग्जांपल ऑफ एनी कोडिफाइड लॉ, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल जिसको सिविल लॉ कहा जा सके, फॉर एग्जांपल नहीं, जैसे इंडियन, हाँ वो मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ भी है, राइट? ऐसे आनंद कीरज, राइट? देयर इज अ एक्ट, राइट, विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू मैरिजेस ऑफ द सिख कम्युनिटी, राइट? आनंद समझा. सो सिमिलर, बट बिगेस्ट कौन से हैं? फॉर एग्जाम्पल वेयर कोडिफिकेशन हैज बीन डन, आईपीसी इंडियन पीनल कोड, राइट? सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड सीपीसी, सीआरपीसी क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर कोड, राइट? सो देयरफॉर completion of the civil code or completion of the criminal code in the form of CPC, civil code, CRPC, criminal code, where you have codified the law, right? So epitome will be that, जो कि after 1857 आएगा, but शुरुआत कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ से हो गई थी, and because beginning happened from here, that's why we are saying that the hallmark was beginning of the concept of civil law. Completion of that concept will take place later on, but beginning of the concept of civil law it is taking place here. Right? That is, all civilians they will be acting as per this particular law. Judges they will be implementing this particular law when they are giving judgments. Right? So write down first next sub point. A code of all regulations. आप यहाँ पे रेगुलेशन को कानून समझ लीजिए, राइट? ऐसा मतलब समझने के लिए आप समझ लीजिए, रेगुलेट करना कानून. अ कोड ऑफ ऑल रेगुलेशंस फॉर गवर्निंग बंगाल. A code of all regulations for governing Bengal was framed. A code of all regulations for governing Bengal was made. Was framed. Was framed. Was framed. Next point. These regulations dealt with rights of persons and property. These regulations dealt with rights of persons and property. Plus contained plus contained rules and directives plus contained rules and directives, and therefore bound the codes, BOUND, and therefore bound the codes to follow these regulations, bound the codes to follow these regulations while passing orders, bound the codes to follow these regulations while passing orders, while passing orders. राइट तो देखो इंग्लिश है बट सिंपल क्या है, some laws are being established, some rules are being established which the courts should follow, right? while passing any order, मतलब लॉ लिख दिया है, बस सिंपल सा पॉइंट ये है, ठीक है? तो इंग्लिश है बट अदरवाइज सो कोर्ट्स कैसे फंक्शन करेंगे, उनके रूल्स और डायरेक्टिव्स हैं, प्लस लॉ के अंदर क्या लिखा जाएगा, व्हाट विल बी रिटन इन द लॉ, द राइट्स ऑफ पीपल एंड राइट्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. Right? So for example, if something is my property and some dispute is there between you and me, so therefore what are my rights if it is my property, right? This kind of scenario, right? Next point, all laws were to be printed in local languages. All laws were to be printed in local languages. All laws were to be printed in local languages. So people know their rights and privileges. So people know their rights and privileges. So people know their rights and privileges and immunities. Rights, privileges and immunities. Rights, privileges and immunities. अच्छा, अब एक बात देखिए, आपने कुछ शब्द नोटिस करे होंगे, राइट्स ऑफ द पीपल, है ना? राइट्स ऑफ पीपल, राइट्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी, राइट्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी, एंड लास्ट में हमने क्या लिखा, पीपल दे नो देयर राइट्स, प्रिविलेजेस, इम्यूनिटीज एंड राइट्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. राइट्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी क्या होते हैं? द नंबर वन राइट ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी इज राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी, जिसको हम कहते हैं सिक्योरिटी ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. Security of property means if there is some money in my bank account, or if I have some factory, or if I have some land, I should have security that it will remain with me. The state or the ruler cannot randomly take it away. That is why when every year the government of India takes away money from my pocket in form of tax, they have to bring a budget which is passed as a law in the parliament, which has representatives, my representatives as members of parliament. So therefore, every year I am denied some part of my property. Your parents are also denied some part of their property, but it is done as per law. So therefore, right to property subject to law, or security of property subject to law, that is security of property. Right? कि प्रॉपर्टी आपकी ली जा सकती है, बट कानून के तहत ही ली जा सकती है. Without कानून, the randomly the state cannot say that we are taking away our property, right? And this is the core essential feature of capitalism. If a capitalist, if a person with money who is a businessman, if he does not have security of property, then he will never invest any money. Then he will never invest any money. I invest 10 crore rupees, set up a factory, and randomly tomorrow the government or the ruling party says that now this property is mine. If I do not have security of property, I will not make any investment. A capitalist needs security of property. A capitalist needs security of property. For example, at one point of time, in one of the state, right, northern state, Haryana, it was said that security of property is not there, right? Such fear or threat was there that if you, for example, if you bought a BMW, right, and let's say the ruling party came to know that you have purchased a BMW, right, they will call you, they will make you have chai, samosa, and then they will say, okay, now go back. Take this money, take 20 rupees, go back with bus. Take a bus. Leave the BMW and the car here. Such kind of stories, right? That means security property was not there. The ruling party was behaving like a गुंडा, राइट, दिस काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो. सो एनी विच वेज, वो तो एक रफ एग्जाम्पल मैंने आपको दिया, बट फॉर एग्जाम्पल रैंडम नेशनलाइजेशन ऑफ प्राइवेट बैंक्स इज देयर, और रैंडम नेशनलाइजेशन ऑफ any private company is there, right? So therefore this is considered very very wrong by a capitalist. In which year are we regulating Act 1793, sorry, this Charter Act 1793? In 1793 who was the Governor General of Bengal? Cornwallis, 8693. What he had done in the matters of property? Permanent settlement 1793. Permanent settlement 1793 made zamindar the landowner. Cornwallis wanted the zamindar to act as a capitalist, माने कि agrarian capitalist. Agrarian capitalist will act as a capitalist only when he has security of property. So therefore, can we say that the Charter Act of 1793 is having an imprint, influence of personality and ideology of Cornwallis? He's saying that my mission is to develop an agrarian capitalist in India in the form of this big landowner which I have created through the permanent settlement. Now I need to give security of property. Therefore, in writing, I want that in such scenarios only Zamindar's property can be taken away. No one should harass him. He should have security of property. And therefore, you see, this man in India, number one man in India, obviously, whenever the British Parliament will be making any law with respect to India, they will take his opinion. तुम्हारा क्या सोचना है, right? So therefore, imprint of Cornwallis can be seen here, right? So bracket में star लगा के लिखिए. And otherwise also, Cornwallis was an honest man. He wanted rule of law, right? So therefore, rights of the citizens are also important. He was very anti-corruption. Right? So जनता को पता होना चाहिए उनके अधिकार क्या है. That's why convert the law into Indian languages so that the people know what are their rights. I do not want my officials to act in a corrupt manner. Right? एक सेकंड ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के लिख लो. Influence of Cornwallis 8693 personality. Influence of Cornwallis 8693 personality visible. Influence of Cornwallis 8693 personality visible. At the rate security of property. At the rate security of property to agrarian capitalist zamindar. At the rate security of property to agrarian capitalist zamindar. Security of property to agrarian capitalist zamindar. Plus written law reduces chances of harassment. Written law reduces chances of harassment by officials. Chances of harassment by officials. Right? Bracket is closed. So therefore, this is the personality of Cornwallis. A person with integrity. Authoritarian. Anti-Indian. Does not want to share power with Indians. But when it comes to his personal integrity, he is having integrity. He is honest. Right? So that is what is there. First constitution for Indians तो नहीं कहेंगे, because constitution has lot of things, not just fundamental rights, but concept of civil law ही बोला जाता है. First constitution कहना थोड़ा सा, constitution एक vast होता है, it is totally comprehensive, and right now the GG Bengal is only GG Bengal. अभी तो there is no GG India also. मतलब तो कहने को कह सकते हैं, बट इट्स लाइक देखना पड़ेगा, किसी किताब में देखना पड़ेगा, बट अदरवाइज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कहना थोड़ा सा ठीक नहीं होगा. हाँ, वो बाद में आएगा. राइट, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट राइट हो. साइज ऑफ बीओसी डिक्रीज्ड. Size of BOC decreased, and now BOC is equal to president of BOC. Size of BOC decreased, and now BOC is equal to president of BOC. BOC is equal to president of BOC plus 2 junior members, plus 2 junior members. Size of BOC is equal to president of BOC plus 2 junior members who may not be from Privy Council. Who may not be from Privy Council. Who may not be from Privy Council. Therefore, concentration of power who may not be from Privy Council, PRIVY, Privy Council. Therefore, concentration of power in President of BOC increased. Therefore, concentration of power in President of BOC increased. President of BOC increased. So imagine a committee, साथ साथ बना भी लीजिएगा इसको. Imagine there is some committee, right? In case number 1, the head of the committee is, let's say, Secretary of Revenue. Secretary Revenue, and members of the committee are some other secchies, some deputy secchi, right? Some other, senior officials, senior officers, right? Compare this scenario that there is Secretary of Revenue, and then you have you guys, right? That is, you are IS 2024 batch. You are IS 2025 बैच होगा तुम्हारे से. 2024 है ना तुम्हारा एग्जाम, 2024 है ना एग्जाम, है ना? तो 2025 बैच ऐसा, राइट? सो देयरफॉर यू सी व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस. वेयर इज द रेवेन्यू सेक्रेटरी मोर पावरफुल? सेकंड वाले में, राइट? व्हाई? बिकॉज इन द केस ऑफ सेकंड, whatever the revenue secretary will say, revenue secretary will tell you, right? I think Mr. Shubham, this is the right course of action. What do you think? Shubham say, yes sir, जी सर. औकात शुभम की जो कुछ कहते. Shubham is just 2025 batch. That secretary revenue is 25 years senior or 30 years senior. What is the point? Obviously, be it experience, be it knowledge, right? So therefore, revenue secretary will be able to have his way very easily. But let's say there is a committee which has his equals or near equals. There the decision making will be tough. There the secretary of revenue will propose something, other secretaries or deputy secretary, मतलब just below him, deputy secretary नहीं है, वो ज़्यादा छोटा हो जाता है. Deputy secretary जगह, let's say some special secretaries there or some additional secretaries there, right? There will be discussion. There will be debate. These people, they can oppose his view, right? So can we say, by removing the Privy Council members, by removing the Chancellor of Exchequer, by having 2 junior members in the committee, we are basically creating dictatorship of President of Board of Control in the Board of Control? So this is called increasing the concentration of power in the President of the Board of Control. So therefore we see a pattern. We see a pattern, right? So इसको बना लो, जल्दी बनाओ. और pattern basically क्या है? So write down pattern. There is concentration of power. Concentration of power. Concentration of powers increased. कहाँ पे? In London. किसके अंदर? In President of BOC. और किसके अंदर? In Governor General. बंगाल ने लिख रहा, आपके बाद में इंडिया भी हो जाएगा. कहाँ पे? In India. कैसे? Via different acts which we are going to discuss, which we are basically discussing. Why different acts from 1773 until your 1853 Charter Act? We will see that the powers of these two entities, that is, continues to increase. So therefore the President of the Board of Control is gradually increasing. The state is becoming powerful. And in India, the GG Bengal is also becoming powerful, right? तो ऐसा concentration of power बढ़ता जाएगा, one man army type से होता जाएगा, right? ऐसा हम pattern देखेंगे. Already we have seen that in the case of Governor General of Bengal, 1773 only war and peace, 1784 war, peace plus revenue, 1786 veto power. Already हम देख चुके हैं that how the GG Bengal is becoming extra powerful, right? And यहाँ पे हमने पहली बार देखा that here 2 junior members are coming. So therefore, President of the Board of Control, this person who is a cabinet level minister, that is Secretary of State, one of the secretaries of state, is becoming extra powerful, right? So therefore, concentration of power, it is increasing in them, right? Next, write down salary of BOC. Salary of BOC to be given by EAC. Salary of BOC to be given by EIC. Salary of BOC to be given by EIC. In brackets डाला होगा, that is by Indian taxpayer money. Salary of BOC to be given by EIC. Salary of Board of Control to be given by EIC. In brackets डाला होगा, that is by Indian taxpayer money. Brackets closed. That is by Indian taxpayer money. Brackets closed. ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा, दोबारा लिखिए. इन फ्यूचर लिंक, इन फ्यूचर लिंक अभी भी यही लिख रहे हो क्या? ये रहता है क्या किसी का? नहीं, किसी का तो रहता है, तुम्हारा तो रहता है. लिख लिया सबने? अच्छा, मुझे लगा कि बार बार इसको देखे जा रहे फिर ऐसा. एनीवेज, in future link issue of home charges. In future link issue of home charges. In future link issue of home charges. That begins here. That begins here. That begins here. In this, in BOC aspect, मतलब that begins here काट दो. That begins here काट दो. ठीक है, ब्रैकेट्स क्लोज्ड. मतलब मैं बिगिनिंग नहीं कह रहा कि बिगिनिंग क्या हुआ. होम चार्जेस के अंदर बहुत सारे पॉइंट्स हैं. व्हाट आर होम चार्जेस? फॉर एग्जांपल, बेसिकली द मनी विच इज फ्लोइंग आउट ऑफ इंडिया टू ब्रिटेन. सो व्हेन वी डिस्कस द ड्रेन थियोरी, दैट इज हाउ द ब्रिटिशर्स दे सिस्टमैटिकली टुक अवे इंडियाज मनी. उसमें जो सैलरीज एंड पेंशंस हैं ऑफ द ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स, दैट इज ऑल्सो अ वे इन विच मनी इज मूविंग आउट ऑफ इंडिया. So if the salary of the Board of Control in London is going to be paid by the East India Company, East India Company is earning money from India, and the major source of income is land revenue of India, right? So therefore, Indian taxpayer money, it is being utilized for the salary of the BOC, and therefore money is flowing out of India to Britain, and this is part of drain, जिसको बोला जाता है home charges. What are home charges? We'll discuss later. अभी discuss नहीं करना है. When we discuss the drain theory, तब उसको बहुत डिटेल में करेंगे. ठीक है, I'll make you write down proper one page on what are home charges. Anyways, next point. GG Bengal's power over his council. GG Bengal's power over his council. GG Bengal's power over his council and over GBO and GMA and over GBO and GMA further increased, and over GBO and GMA further increased. GBO and GMA further increased. How exactly they are increased ऐसा mention नहीं है मेन स्ट्रीम बुक्स में, तो फाइन, वी कैन लीव इट एट दैट, राइट. छोटे छोटे कुछ पॉइंट्स होंगे, बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट कुछ नहीं है, बस एक जनरल सा ही है. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, subjects of the crown, subjects of the crown cannot acquire territory, cannot acquire sovereign powers. Subjects of the crown cannot acquire sovereign powers. Subjects of the crown cannot acquire sovereign powers over territory, sovereign powers over territory on their own, sovereign powers over territory on their own, but only on behalf of, on their own, but only on behalf of, but only on behalf of crown, but only on behalf of crown, but only on behalf of crown. Therefore, company was to exercise, therefore company was to exercise political functions. Company was to exercise political functions slash manage public affairs, manage public affairs slash handle CMR matters, handle CMR matters and administrative matters, and administrative matters in India, in India, as agent, as agent slash munsi slash manager of British state, manager of British state, in brackets डाला के may your English go to hell, लिखो लिखो, may your English go to hell, may your English go to hell, may your English go to hell. That is why I used slash slash slash. अरे यार ये जो बुक्स हैं दे कंफ्यूज अस, राइट? सो विद देयर इंग्लिश, राइट? तो इतना सब स्लैश स्लैश क्यों हमने यूज किया? व्हाट आर पॉलिटिकल फंक्शंस? What are sovereign powers over territory? Sovereign powers over territory is equal to political function, is equal to public affairs, is equal to CMR and administrative matters. This is all simple English. This is all simple English. All of them, they mean the same thing. Political function, public affairs, CMR matters, sovereign powers over territory, right? All of these things, they are either very closely interconnected or the same things, right? So I do not want my student, right? I do not want my student to get confused कि भाई एक जगह public affairs लिखा है, दूसरी जगह political function लिखा है. Exactly what are they after, right? So these are the same, exactly same thing, right? And what do you mean by company was to exercise political function on behalf of the crown? उन्होंने क्या कहा? In this particular act, they are clearly writing down that the car belongs to me, right? Remember yesterday's example, right? So now the father is clearly telling the son that the car belongs to father. They are clearly saying sovereign powers, they cannot be acquired over territory by any subject of the crown. Subject of the crown means any British citizen and any company which is registered in Britain. They are subjects of the crown, right? Like all of us are, including this Vision IAS, all of us are basically subjects of the Indian state. We are subjects of the Indian state. And the parliament is now saying that subjects of the crown, that is the British state, they cannot acquire any territory or sovereign powers also over any territory on its own, but only on behalf of the crown. माने कि just in case if you are able to acquire territory also na, so you have acquired territory on my behalf. That means they are clearly telling them that Indian annexed territory belongs to the British state and not to East India Company. गलती से मत सोच लेना that it is your property. Fear of United States of America, it is going on. That गलती से भी ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ऐसा ना सोच ले that this territory belongs to East India Company. ठीक है? You are managing it. You are my munshi. You are my agent. Right? This is what is there. We wrote one sentence. बैग में स्टार लगा को लिंक 1857 रिवोल्ट टॉपिक, लिंक 1857 रिवोल्ट टॉपिक, कॉमा टॉपिक, कॉमा इम्पैक्ट where the term absentee sovereignty used, where the term absentee sovereignty used, where the term absentee sovereignty used, brackets closed. So therefore those students who remember, किसी को याद है by chance we used a term in the impact of 1857 revolt, absentee sovereignty, and in brackets में star लगा के we tried to define it also. We said that after the 1857 revolt, the public pressure in Britain on the government of Britain increased to end absentee sovereignty in India. Bracket में star लगा के हमने लिखा absentee sovereignty is equal to real sovereign power is the British state, but it was absent in India as a ruler. as it ruled India through an agent, through a munshi, through a manager called East India Company. And therefore, the British people are saying, munshi ko hatao, directly start ruling India. And therefore, the East India Company rule was ended, and the British state directly took over ruling India after 1858. So therefore, the concept of absentee sovereignty in crystal clear terms is starting where? In Charter Act of 1793. ये पहली बार कहां क्लियर किया जा रहा है कि तुम मेरे मुंशी हो और इंडिया में जो भी टेरिटरी है वो मेरी है. Where it is being cleared that you are simply, I am the sovereign, you are just my agent. This is being made clear in the Charter Act of 1793, right? And the reason is the fear created by United States of America. They did not want to lose India at all, right? Next heading, write down. Charter Act 1813. Charter Act 1813. Charter Act 1813. Charter Act 1813. Hallmark is equal to Hallmark is equal to Hallmark is equal to project of westernization of India began. Hallmark is equal to project of westernization of India began. Project of westernization of India began. Project of westernization of India began. In brackets star लगा के @polity, @polity, comma @economy, @polity, comma @economy, comma socio-religious, socio-religious domain, socio-religious domain, brackets closed, right? So therefore, what basically happened here is that by the time period of 1813, the ideology of Orientalism, it has faded away, and now the ideologies of utilitarianism, evangelicalism, and liberalism, they were gaining ground, right? And now they basically said that we should not rule India the India way. We should rule India our way. That the ancient Indian civilization, it is not great, right? So therefore, now they were having confidence. Now they were having confidence to westernize India. Now they were having confidence to westernize India. And they said that as per the idea of white man's burden, this concept of Orientalism has prevented India from getting West-like economy. Because आप कहते रहे rule India the India way. This has prevented India from getting West-like polity. Because आप कहते रहे rule India the India way. This has prevented India from getting West-like societal reforms. Such a good religion called Christianity, because you wanted to rule India the India way. So therefore, sorry, this has to change. You have denied India the best ideas of the age. कौन कहेगा? Liberal. Liberal कहता था best ideas of the age. Utilitarianist कहता था best laws, right? Good laws and good governance, right? Evangelic कहता था best Christianity, was Christianize India to modernize India, right? So therefore, this particular Orientalism has restricted India from getting the best things from Britain. And now, अब हम ये इंडिया के साथ अत्याचार नहीं होने देंगे. I will not allow India to be bereft of these brilliant ideas. And therefore, to westernize the Indian economy, I see that the business of India, the trade of India, it is in the hands of this one company, which is East India Company, right? East India Company, so it is a trader. It purchases things, sells things. Does it manufacture canals? I am asking you, madam, does East India Company manufactures canal? नहीं. तुम बताओ, does East India Company manufactures railways? Does it manufacture ships? Does it do mining? These are all modern things. Does it have machines? Does East India Company establish factories? तुम कहोगे हाँ सर, but बेटा that factory was warehouse. We are talking about modern factory which has machines, which converts raw material into finished goods, right? So therefore, till the point of time India is in the kabja of East India Company, Till the point of time monopoly of East India Company is there over India, how can you modernize the Indian economy? How will India get railways? How will India get canals? How will India get best irrigation systems, mining, etc., factories, mills, machines, textile mills, jute mills? कैसे आएगा इंडिया में? So therefore, get rid of this monopoly of the East India Company. To westernize the Indian economy, you need to get rid of the monopoly of the East India Company over trade with India or over business with India. Right? Plus, they said that since 1776, the economist Adam Smith had written a paper called An Inquiry into Nature and Causes, an inquiry into nature and causes of wealth of nations. That is why nations are rich, or how the nations they can become rich. And here he gave the idea of free market economy. Free market economy. Right? That means everyone should be allowed to do everything in the economy. The government should not interfere in the economy at all. Let the market forces run wild in the forest of economy. Demand and supply forces, let them decide everything. And everyone should have freedom to do anything. And therefore, the idea of monopoly, it is totally against free market economy. How can the state say that only East India Company will do business with India? This goes against the principle of free market economy. You're denying the freedom to other non-East India Company businesses to do business with India. Why? Why there should be special powers to the East India Company? This is an archaic idea. This is not the way modern economy functions. Free market economy. And from 1776, ideas they take time to implement. From 1776, we have reached 1813. That means 24 plus 13, 27, 37 years have passed. And the idea of free market economy was booming. And therefore, ideological pressure was also there to end the monopoly of the East India Company. बड़ी अच्छी बातें हुई. This is a diplomatic talk. This is a diplomatic talk. What was the real reason? Reality is dirty. Reality is dirty. Real politic is interesting but real. You can associate with it. This is ideology, phantarbaji. All of these things are done by the people who want to justify their real intentions with some good words. That's breach of fundamental rights in Ukraine. That's why I stand with Ukraine. These are Ukraine has right to choose that whether it becomes member of NATO or not. Right? So therefore, these kind of narrative, this is like good things, principles, ideologies, they are used, right? But they are applied selectively. Where my real interest is there, वहाँ पे आ जाएंगे fundamental rights, and where my real interests are not there, there the fundamental rights will fly away. Right? So therefore, this is how you utilize these things to meet your national interest. Actually, that is what your real politic difference, ideological diplomacy and real politic diplomacy, that is the difference. Right? So therefore, what is the real reason? Real reason was, my friends, that from 1750 onwards, industrial revolution had begun in England. And therefore, the economy of England was gradually industrializing. That means more and more machines were now present in the economy of England. And machines, my friend, they require raw materials. And they also require an export market. That is, I should be able to get cheap supply of raw materials. Who will provide it? Colonies will provide it. And once I convert the raw material into finished good, I should be able to sell these products not just in England, but also to my colonies. And because I have political power over my colonies, therefore I can force the colonies to buy this particular product. And therefore maximize my profits. Profit is equal to revenues minus cost. Revenue is the MRP of the product. Cost is cost of raw material. So if I am getting cheap raw material, my cost is low. And if I am getting an export market, my revenue is more. So therefore, this is how I can increase my income. And more the capitalists, more the factory owners they will earn, more the British state will earn. As simple as that. Right? And therefore, in this scenario, a company which is a merchant, that does not fit. In this scenario, the company which is a merchant, that does not fit. And there can be different ways of looting the colony now. Right? Of converting. Railways can be exported to India. Canals can be exported to India. When they construct canals in India, cannot we say that canals are being exported to India? Or canals are being sold to India? When they do, when they build railways, cannot we say that railways are being exported to India or railways are being sold to India? And when you sell something, you earn money. And when you buy something, you lose money. So therefore, when they are selling irrigation projects in India, when they are selling railway projects in India, they are earning forex. Money is going from India to Britain. So Britain will also earn. And the capitalists, they will also earn. Factory owners, they will also earn. Right? And that is pure scenario mein merchant does not fit. And any which ways, one company cannot manufacture canal also, railways also, irrigation projects also, mining also. एक company सब कुछ थोड़ी करती है भाई. One company cannot do everything. Right? तो monopoly idea अब fit नहीं कर रहा. Now you require multiple MNCs of Britain to enter India, to do mining of India, to take away the forest resources of India, take them to England, and then again convert them to finished goods and then sell the finished goods to Indians. When Indians they will buy, they will give money, take that money out of India, right? Or you can sell these products using the raw materials of India to the outside world also, right? And therefore you earn money. And that is why, plus एक और चीज़ है, since imagine करो एक scenario, my economy is agrarian economy, there the money power will be with true people. एक तो big landlords. If my economy is agrarian economy, if 95% of my GDP is coming from agriculture sector, दो लोगों के पास पैसा होगा, big landlords, because they are the property owners, ना? What is the factory? What is the factory of an agrarian economy? The land is a factory. वहीं पे तो investment हो रहा है, वहीं से raw material is getting converted into finished product, which is फसल, harvest. Factory of agrarian economy is the land. So therefore, who is the factory owner in agrarian economy? Big landlord. है ना? Basically in an agrarian economy, दो लोग monetarily powerful होंगे, a big landlord and second a trader or a merchant, जिसका काम है to purchase goods from one place and sell it to another. But in an industrial economy, let's say where 80%, 70% of the economy is based on machines, who will have monetary power? Who will have buying power to buy politicians? Factory owner. And this factory owners of Britain, they want to make best use of business opportunity in India, and they want to get rid of this East India Company, a merchant who is having monopoly. क्या कुंडली मारे बैठा है इंडिया में? So therefore, their lobbying is working. Their lobbying is working. No more East India Company, a merchant, has that kind of lobbying power through which it was renewing its charters again and again. अब पैसे की ताकत, money power it is with factory owners who have machines. And they want EIC out of picture. Right? So therefore, changed economy, that is now India is not to be a supplier of finished goods. अब वो that thing has gone that East India Company will buy Indian finished goods and then it will sell the finished goods to the whole world and earn profit. वो time चला गया है अब. That is not needed anymore. We don't need finished goods from India anymore अब. We माने British. हमको finished goods India से अब नहीं चाहिए. हमें इंडिया से चाहिए रॉ मटेरियल विच विल कन्वर्ट इनटू फिनिश्ड गुड्स एंड देन वी विल सेल द फिनिश्ड गुड्स टू इंडियंस, राइट? सो देयरफॉर ये जो मर्चेंट्स वगैरह हैं वो रहेंगे, दे विल कैरी आवर गुड्स हियर एंड देयर, बट दे आर इन सेकेंडरी रूल नाउ. और ये ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी हटाओ, राइट? तो पॉइंट नंबर 1, माइग्रेशन फ्रॉम एग्रेरियन इकोनॉमी टू इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी, reduce the importance of East India Company, right? And second, lobbying power of the East India Company is also coming down because now the money power it is there with the industrialists. And now they see India as an opportunity. I have developed the technology to make railways. Fine, Britain में धंधा चल रहा है, इंडिया में नहीं चल सकता क्या? So for that, East India Company needs to go away, right? So that is the real politic. And that is they call, to justify it, they use white man's burden. To justify it, they use free market economy, right? To justify it, they say that Indian economy will develop, it will get industrialized, right? That is the reason. Second component with respect to your culture. So now they legalize entry of Christian missionaries into India. Earlier, the entry of Christian missionaries was not legal, and therefore now they want to Christianize India. Why? Evangelicalism ideology is an impression. औकात कहाँ से हुई इनकी इतनी? From where did they have the guts? Guts is by 1813. You look at the wars. Only third Anglo-Maratha war is pending, my friend, and only Anglo-Sikh war is pending. बाकी सब जा चुका है. Only third Anglo-Maratha war 1817-19 is pending, and only Anglo-Sikh war, the two Anglo-Sikh wars, they are pending. Otherwise, everything has gone. They are the supreme military power. In 1803, they captured Delhi, signed subsidy alliance with Sindhya. You're this Gaikwad of Baroda with Peshwa, सब कुछ जा चुका है. And therefore, भाई साहब, पैसा बोलता और ताकत बोलती है. Guns and monetary power. That is what speaks in the world, right? Of that time. Rule-based society, it is not there. अभी भी international वो तो सब है rule-based society, but still China is able to do all of these things. Why? Because it has economic power, my friends. It has military power. That's why every news item, Japan is now going to increase its military potential. Why? Change from pacifist policy. Why? Monetary power, military power. These are the two things which matter. Right? These are two things which matter. Right? And this is why the things they are changing. So now they have the guts. They can take the risk of Christianizing India. क्यों? क्योंकि अब औकात हो गई मेरे दोस्त. जब तुम 1757 में आए थे, when you came in 1765, तब तुम्हारी औकात नहीं थी. So therefore you said Indian civilization is great. अब जेब में थोड़ा पैसा आया, you got some money and you got military power, तो तुम्हारी जुबान बदल गई है. Now you are saying what India needs is an effective schoolmaster, says the utilitarianist. That ancient Indian civilization is great. ये myth है. Evangelics are saying that the biggest thing which is wrong with India is its religion. Christianize India to modernize India. Liberals are saying give the best ideas of the age to India. And what are these ideas? British ideas. Britain-like economy, Britain-like culture, Britain-like polity, Britain-like language, English. Wow. Now your language is changing. You see, this is how justify तो कुछ भी किया जा सकता है. Real politic, real interest matters. Real power matters, and real politic, real interest matters. Right? And therefore, our country is bound to become great. Why? Because history has been like that. And again, we are moving on to that path where our economy is rising. Right? Recently, a report has also come that by 2075, India will be the second largest economy of the world after China. US सब पीछे होने वाले हैं. हमारा our time is again coming gradually. We are rising because military power or paise ki power, that is what is there. And our biggest strength is our population. आप लोग हंस रहे हो actually में reports are there that China will decline, but its decline will be not sharp, its decline will be gradual. And you know what the foreign affairs magazines and others, what they write, they are talking about their population. Now the Chinese government is giving money to the Chinese people to have more than one child. They have an aging population. When you have an aging population, your workforce shrinks. And those people who are dependent on the pensions, their numbers increase. And therefore the disposable income of the working population, it comes down. When the disposable income of the working population comes down, the demand comes down. Right? When the demand comes down, the whole engine of economy comes, slow. So therefore today, why every company wants to come to India? Because India has a very good population with buying power. Right? So therefore that is why everyone is attracted towards us. That is one of the big reasons. Right? So therefore this is called demographic. And if we are able to have skill development, then we will be able to have demographic dividend. Right? That means this thing. We have next 20, 30, 40 years where we can make use of these things. Right? So that's why skill development, education, they are very, very important. Make in India is a must. It is a very strategic move, make in India. Right? So all of these things are there. So anyways, we'll come back and we'll jot down all of these things, that why there was a focus on westernizing India, Christianizing India, ये सब चीजें. So monopoly of East India Company is going to come to an end. Right? So we'll meet in 10 minutes. Right, so please write down background is equal to background is equal to Industrial Revolution 1750-1850. Industrial Revolution 1750-1850 in England. Industrial Revolution 1750-1850 in England. Therefore, now Britain wanted, therefore, now Britain wanted to convert India, therefore, now Britain wanted to convert India into a source of cheap raw materials. Now Britain wanted to convert India into source of cheap raw materials and an export market for British machine manufactured finished goods. Machine manufactured finished goods. Full stop. High pressure of manufacturers. And non-EIC traders. High pressure of manufacturers and non-EIC traders to end monopoly. High pressure of manufacturers and non-EIC traders to end monopoly of EIC. Over trade/business with India. Monopoly of EIC over trade/business with India. That existed since 1600 charter. Since 1600 charter. Next point. Adam Smith in his dash an inquiry into nature and causes of wealth of nations. Adam Smith in his dash an inquiry into nature and causes of wealth of nations. Or simply wealth of nations dash 1776 had argued for free market economy. Therefore, idea of monopoly came under criticism. Next point. It was argued that opening up Indian economy would westernize Indian economy, would westernize Indian economy via transfer of technology, would westernize Indian economy via transfer of technology and FDI, transfer of technology and FDI, that would industrialize India. FDI that would industrialize India. Leading to better fulfillment, leading to better fulfillment of WM burden, leading to better fulfillment of WM burden, white man's burden, leading to better fulfillment of white man's burden. Next point, evangelist, EV angel IST, EV angel IST, evangelist Charles Grant, evangelist Charles Grant, comma, member of COD of EIC, comma, member of COD of EIC, and liberals and utilitarianists, liberals and utilitarianists argued for westernizing India, argued for westernizing India, argued for westernizing India to fulfill WM burden, to fulfill WM burden, to fulfill WM burden. As for them, greatness of ancient Indian civilization, as for them, greatness of ancient Indian civilization was a myth. Greatness of ancient Indian civilization was a myth. Next item, provisions of Charter 1813. Provisions of Charter 1813. Provisions of Charter 1813. Provisions of Charter 1813. First subpoint, monopoly of EIC, monopoly of EIC over trade with India ended. Monopoly of EIC over trade with India ended. Except for monopoly over tea trade and trade with China. Except for monopoly over tea trade and trade with China. And trade with China. And trade with China. In brackets डाला गया कि therefore commercial affairs of EIC in India, therefore commercial affairs of EIC in India no more, except for tea trade. No more, except of tea trade. Except of tea trade. Brackets closed. तो सिर्फ आप पॉलिटिकल अफेयर्स रह गए विच दे आर हैंडलिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द ब्रिटिश क्राउन. तो कंपनी रही नहीं काफी हद तक विद रिस्पेक्ट टू इंडिया, राइट. Next point, entry of Christian missionaries. Entry of Christian missionaries. Entry of Christian missionaries. Legalized. Entry of Christian missionaries legalized. Entry of Christian missionaries legalized. Therefore, spread of Christianity began. Therefore, spread of Christianity began. Next point. Charter 1813 talked about. Charter 1813 talked about. Charter 1813 talked about undoubted sovereignty of British Crown. Charter 1813 talked about undoubted sovereignty of British Crown over territorial possessions, over territorial possessions in India, over territorial possessions in India. Undoubted sovereignty of British Crown over territorial possessions of India. So you see, again they are hammering in. In 1784, they just briefly mentioned British territorial possessions, not EIC territorial possession, British territorial possession. एक हल्का सा hint दिया. In 1793 charter, they are clearly saying that no subject of the crown can acquire sovereign powers over any territory on its own, but only on behalf of the crown. और अभी भी कोई doubt रह गया है, तो they are clearly saying undoubted sovereignty of British crown over territories which are under the control of East India Company. Undoubted. गलती से भी कोई doubt मत रखना. Right? Therefore, in one way, you are on one hand you are saying this, and दूसरा तुम्हें शर्म नहीं आती कहते हुए that imperialism in India was sub-imperialism. Remember the debate that we had in the beginning? है? वाह, undoubted sovereignty. मतलब कि तुमने तो नवाब ऑफ अवध बना दिया ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी को. दैट इज ब्लेम करना है 1857 रिवोल्ट के लिए तो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी है, एंड अदरवाइज द रियल सोवरेन पावर खुद लिख रहे हो किसके पास है? विद द ब्रिटिश क्राउन. फ्रॉम 1784 विदाउट योर अप्रूवल द सब इंपीरियलिस्ट्स कैनॉट बी अपॉइंटेड. दैट इज द प्रिंसिपल मैन ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी कैनॉट बी अपॉइंटेड. उन्हीं को तो सब इंपीरियलिस्ट कहा जा रहा है ना. दे आर द वंस हु आर बीइंग कॉल्ड सब इंपीरियलिस्ट. दूसरा साइड तुम कह रहे हो सोवरेनिटी इज टोटली विद यू. So how can you escape responsibility for imperialism in India? That was our argument when we began this journey, that whether empire building in India took place only by East India Company or the British state was hands in glove with the East India Company. So therefore proof is there now in more legal terms in front of you. The same thing that we discussed there in more legal terms, it is clearly in front of you. Right? This kind of scenario. Right? Next point. Goal of British rule was defined as, goal of British rule was defined as, इसी का ही पार्ट है. Goal of British rule was defined as शर्म नहीं आएगी ने. Totally shameless people. Totally shameless people. How can they even think to write this in the act? How can they even think? Economy बोल लेते, we could have understood that you have had industrial revolution, but when you have military power and when you have money power, then the things matter. Movies में नहीं दिखाया a poor woman, you know, doing household work, right, etc etc, ठीक है, having bruises also on feet, नंगे पैर चल रही, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. बट वहीं पे कोई प्रिंसेस है, प्रिंसेस के पैर में कांटा लग जाए तो हीरो उड़ता हुआ आ जाता है. एक छोटा सा स्मॉल थॉर्न इन दी फीट ऑफ प्रिंसेस, है ना. दैट इज द डिफरेंस. सो दिस इज व्हाट मनी डज. द पेन ऑफ द रिच, इफ यू हैव मनी, योर पेन विल पेन द अदर पीपल मोर. दिस इज व्हाट पावर डज. दिस इज व्हाट पावर डज. अब देखिए इनके पास पावर आ गई तो कैसा भद्दा स्टेटमेंट लिख रहे हैं. राइट? क्या कह रहे हैं? गोल ऑफ ब्रिटिश रूल इन इंडिया इज मॉरल एंड स्पिरिचुअल अपलिफ्टमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. स्पिरिचुअल, द लैंड ऑफ स्पिरिचुअलिटी, उसका स्पिरिचुअल अपलिफ्टमेंट दीस पीपल दे विल डू. है। औरोबिंदो घोष राइट्स डाउन, मैं बताता हूँ औरोबिंदो घोष क्या लिखते हैं। कहाँ गए औरोबिंदो, एक सेकंड, अरे कहाँ गए औरोबिंदो, अरे औरोबिंदो कहाँ गए यार। मिल गए औरोबिंदो। औरोबिंदो कह रहे हैं यूरोप लिव्स बाय सेंचुरीज, एशिया बाय मिलेनियम्स। यूरोप इज parceled out in nations, Asia in civilizations. The whole of Europe forms only one civilization with a common, derived and largely second-hand culture. जैसे second hand गाड़ी खरीद लेते ना, second hand culture. Asia supports three civilizations, each of them original and of the soil. Everything in Europe is small, rapid, short-lived. She has not the secret of immortality which India has or which Asia has. Asia is land of three civilizations, all original. वो आज के टाइम पे when they are talking about European identity, when they are talking about European civilization, Europeanness with European Union, they are trying to reach the India level. If you look at Europe, it has multiple languages, India has multiple languages. वो तब भी पीछे रहेंगे because India has multiple religions which have emanated from this land. Such great spiritual people have lived on this soil. वहाँ पे तो एक ही है क्रिश्चियनिटी, उसमें डिवीजन हो गए बस दो, प्रोटेस्टेंट और कैथोलिक्स, और तीसरा ऑर्थोडॉक्स। यहाँ पे तो बुद्धिज्म हो गया, सिखिज्म हो गया, जैनिज्म हो गया है। सो देयरफॉर क्या बात करते हैं, यहाँ पे तो इस्लाम भी आया तो सूफीज्म हो गया है? तो देयरफॉर दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो व्हिच इज देयर, राइट। तो ये लिख रहे हैं इसलिए गोल ऑफ ब्रिटिश रूल वाज डिफाइंड एज मॉरल एंड स्पिरिचुअल डेवलपमेंट, moral and spiritual development of India, moral and spiritual development of India, moral and spiritual development of India. Therefore now push to Christianity, therefore now push to Christianity and to push to Christianity and to socio-religious reforms, push to Christianity and to push socio-religious reforms. बेटा डेवलपमेंट तो तुम्हारी होने वाली है जस्ट इन 44 years. 1857 रिवोल्ट, अभी डेवलपमेंट होगी. स्वामी विवेकानंद has said every nation has a character. India's character is spiritualism. If you try to destroy India's spiritualism, then India will rise. हमें लूट लो पैसे से, कोई टेंशन नहीं. हमारी पॉलिटिकल पावर ले लो, कोई टेंशन नहीं. हम तो इतने अमीर हैं यार, सच में. मतलब आपको मजाक लग रहा है, मैं मजाक में कह भी रहा हूं, बट इमेजिन वो ऐड आता था ना, पेट्रोल खत्म ही नहीं होता. दैट इज द सिचुएशन ऑफ इंडिया, राइट. कितने so many invaders have come, they have become filthy rich. The wealth of this land does not erode, it only rises, right. In Europe also there is one such country, Germany, right. It again risen. कितना ही कर लो, World War I destroyed, again rose. Hitler destroyed, again rose. Today it is the number one nation of European Union, Mittel Europa. Original name is not Germany, Mittel Europa, Middle Europe. That is the name. This kind of scenario, right. तो वो है, तो राइट डाउन नेक्स्ट. प्लस इसमें वो है प्लस पुश टू वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन, इसी लाइन में प्लस पुश टू वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन, प्लस पुश टू वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन. When the Britishers they came to India, India used to contribute 27% to the world GDP, and Britain used to contribute 1 to 2% or 3% of the world GDP. When the Britishers they left India, the situation was reversed. By 1947, India contributed just 2% to the world GDP, and Britain to this thing. अब वो industrialization और सब चीजें होंगी तो percentage again they are different, whatever. But that situation was reversed, right? That is how they looted India. Anyway, next point. Therefore, Charter 1813 is equal to benchmark. Therefore, Charter 1813 is equal to benchmark for westernization of India. Therefore, Charter 1813 is equal to benchmark for westernization of India. Benchmark for westernization of India. In brackets star लगा के think dash Charter 1813 contributed to 1857 revolt. Brackets closed. Charter 1813 contributed to 1857 revolt. So therefore, do not be surprised if someday UPSC asks a question that foundations of 1857 revolt were laid by early 19th century. और आप घूमे हो पता नहीं क्या कह गया, पता नहीं क्या कह गया. यूपीएससी से क्वेश्चन पूछता है. ऐसा क्या है कि यूपीएससी हर साल नए क्वेश्चन पूछ लेता है, उसका पेट्रोल खत्म नहीं होता. इट कीप्स ऑन आस्किंग न्यू क्वेश्चंस. व्हाई? इंटरकनेक्शंस. A person who needs to know, who knows that how to play with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, he can have multiple permutations and combinations. Right? That's why समझ के पढ़ेंगे तो you'll be able to answer. Next heading, Charter Act 1833. Charter Act 1833 / Saint Helena, सलमान खान की माँ. सेंट माँ मतलब, अब देखो प्रॉब्लम वही है, कॉलोनियल मेंटालिटी. मैंने कहा माँ तो सम पीपल मे हैव फेल्ट ऑफेंडेड. अब मैं कहते सलमान खान की मम्मी तो लोग कहते हैं हाँ अब ठीक है. मैंने बोला सलमान खान की माँ तो लोग ऐसे ऐसे रूड हो गए. सर आई लव सलमान खान. कॉलोनियल मेंटालिटी. माँ इज अ हिंदी वर्ड. सेंट हेलेना, सेंट हेलेना एक्ट, सेंट हेलेना एक्ट, सेंट हेलेना एक्ट. सोतेली थी है मतलब होगी अभी तो. हाँ अरे वो, अरे मेरे भोले भंडारू, ये जगह का नाम है भाई. हेलेन उसकी माँ का नाम है, इसलिए मैंने मजाक कर दिया. ये जगह का नाम है. दिस इज नेम ऑफ प्लेस. कॉलोनियल मेंटालिटी. So Saint Helena was a place. It was one of the most remotest place on earth. It is there in Atlantic Ocean. It is the most remotest place on earth. One of the most remotest. It is there in Atlantic Ocean, and this island of Saint Helena, it was under the possession of the East India Company, and it was taken by this particular act from the East India Company by the British Crown, and that is why name of this act is also known as Saint Helena Act. It obviously also renews the charter. That is why the name is also the Charter Act of 1833. Why is Saint Helena famous? Because Napoleon, when he was defeated, Napoleon was जिद्दी था, right? So Napoleon, when he was defeated twice, he was first defeated in 1813. After that, he was sent to Elba. Elba is very very close to, France, just south of France in Mediterranean Sea, right? जैसे France है, यहाँ पे Corsica है, यहाँ पे Elba है, right? Corsica was where he was born. And Elba, छोटा सा area, right? But then again, after 2 years, he came back to France, and he challenged the military that if you want to kill me, but otherwise, I am here to win back pride of France. Napoleon is Napoleon. His personality is great, so people they again start fighting under him. Again, he is defeated in 1815 in Leipzig, Germany. After that, the British like कि इसको जितना दूर हो सकता है उतना दूर भेज दो. Send him away as far as possible. So he was jailed in Saint Helena, island of Saint Helena, where he died after 6 years in 1821. Right? And the last 3 words on his mouth before death were France. Right? One was France, second was war, the battle, and third was Josephine. Josephine. Napoleon का प्यार. Josephine. Right. So he died in 1821 with these three words. Right. So, anyways, write down first sub point. Island of Saint Helena. Island of Saint Helena in Atlantic. Island of Saint Helena in Atlantic. In Atlantic. Taken over. Island of Saint Helena in Atlantic. Taken over from EIC. Taken over from EIC by British state. Taken over from EIC by British state. In brackets star लगा के one of remotest place on earth, one of remotest place on earth, one of remotest place on earth, comma, important port of call, that is motel or dhaba, important port of call, that is motel और ढाबा. ये ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के एग्जाम में लिखाना ढाबा, मोटेल और ढाबा. So basically, like we are traveling long distance vacation, so on the way we need rest, na. Similarly, ships, they don't need rest. The people who are on the ship, they don't need rest. Like our car can need repair, ships they also need repair. Like we stop for petrol on the way, ships they also require coal. Right. So therefore, when you're traveling long distances in the oceans, there are these small islands which are basically dhaba for ships, motels for ships, and they are officially called port of call. Right. Without their control, it will be very tough for the countries to dominate the oceans. Plus, you can also have a navy stationed in these small islands, and that is how you can dominate the oceans. So therefore, if China wants to dominate the South China Sea, it will focus on capturing small islands in the South China Sea. That's why small islands, they become very important. Right. So go to the Google Maps, search for French overseas territories or British overseas territories. You will still find many small islands all across the oceans of the world under them. Right. So therefore, this is how they dominate the oceans. Right. Plus ब्रैकेट्स में ही चल रहा है ये सब कुछ. प्लस नेपोलियन died here in 1821. Napoleon died here in 1821. Brackets closed. Napoleon died here in 1821. Brackets closed. Right. Second point. Charter 18133. Charter 1833 is equal to landmark. Charter 1833 is equal to landmark in constitutional history of India. Charter 1833 is equal to landmark in constitutional history of India. Is equal to landmark in constitutional history of India. Basically, point बहुत simple है. Why it is called a landmark? Because for the first time, India is going to have one executive which is going to rule whole of British India. Right. So therefore, this kind of scenario. ठीक है. So एक टाइम पे तो मतलब एक देखा जाए अगर हम if you forget the 565 princely states, if you forget the 565 princely states and let us just say that British India is equal to India, ऐसा मतलब just for the sake of hypothetical thing. So therefore एक तो औरंगजेब था which was the real ruler of the whole of India. उस प्रकार से तो चलो राजपूतानास को बाकी ट्रावनकोर वगैरह को 565 प्रिंसली स्टेट्स मान लेते हैं. मतलब आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू से भाई एक तो सिंगल एग्जीक्यूटिव था औरंगजेब. राइट. उसके बाद मराठास वर अबाउट टू बिकम द सिंगल एग्जीक्यूटिव बट थर्ड बैटल ऑफ पानीपत हैपेंड. सो एक तरीके से देखा जाए तो ठीक है फाइन, मराठास बोल दो या फिर औरंगजेब बोल दो, सिंगल एग्जीक्यूटिव. एंड दूसरा अब तो वो जो गेम ऑफ थ्रोन का जो थ्रोन वेकेट हुआ था, सो उसका रूलर एक सिंगल रूलर फॉर द होल ऑफ ब्रिटिश इंडिया. हाउ जीजी बंगाल इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू जीजी इंडिया एंड नाउ ही कैन मेक लॉज फॉर द होल ऑफ ब्रिटिश इंडिया. Now he can take administrative and executive decisions for the whole of British India. That means India is getting a prime minister in a way. India is getting one single ruler in a way. Earlier, Bengal was being ruled by GG Bengal. right? Yes, in some matters, some directions can be given, like in revenue matters also, land revenue matters also, directions they can be given to Bombay and Madras. But more or less, Bengal was being ruled by GG Bengal, Bombay by Governor of Bombay, Madras by Governor of Madras. Right? It is now in the Charter Act of 1833 that Governor General of India, that means he is the ruler of whole of British India. He can take administrative decisions for the whole of British India. Also, he can make, his council can make laws for the whole of British India. So, single central legislative and executive authority, single central executive and legislative authority for British India is coming in the Charter Act of 1833. Unitary structure is now formed. Also, legislative powers of governors of Bombay and Madras are taken away. That means it is peak of centralization. Right? That's why it is called landmark in constitutional history of India. Because India is getting one parliament in a way, right? Parliament us tarike se, but one legislature, that is Governor General of India's Council is the legislature, top legislature, and one executive that is headed by the Governor General of India. Right? So therefore, us prakar se. So this is the peak of centralization. Right? So centralization began in 1773. Right? GG Bengal in matters of war and peace. Right? ऐसे हुआ. ठीक है. फिर उसके बाद हमने देखा 1784 in revenue matters also. फिर 1793 in more matters. Right? 1813 उसमें तो कुछ नहीं हुआ. 1833 Governor General of India. Right? Peak of centralization. Right? तो यही है बस और कुछ नहीं. Right? So write down. As territory with EIC, as territory with EIC in India increased, as territory with EIC in India increased, and as inflow of Britishers since 1813 increased, inflow of Britishers since 1813 increased, need for uniform laws and administration, need for uniform laws and administration in whole of British India was felt. Need for uniform laws and administration in whole of British India was felt. In whole of British India was felt. In brackets स्टार लगा के लिखिए. जीएसटी स्लोगन, जीएसटी स्लोगन क्या था? जीएसटी स्लोगन वन नेशन वन टैक्स. जीएसटी स्लोगन वन नेशन वन टैक्स. देयरफॉर ये ब्रैकेट्स में ही चल रहा है. जीएसटी स्लोगन वन नेशन वन टैक्स. देयरफॉर यूनिफॉर्म लॉज is a good administrative practice. Uniform laws is a good governance practice. Uniform laws is a good governance practice. Plus in COI, DPSP, mention of Uniform Civil Code, plus in COI, DPSP, mention of Uniform Civil Code, plus in world history, Napoleonic Civil Code, Napoleon's Civil Code, 1804, celebrated. Plus in world history, Napoleon's Civil Code, 1804, celebrated. Brackets closed. तो चाहे वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री हो, वन नेशन वन लॉ, वन फ्रांस वन लॉ, नेपोलियंस सिविल कोड, इट इज सेलिब्रेटेड. इट इंस्पायर्ड मेनी ऑफ द सिविल कोड्स ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड. आज तक आप वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री पढ़ते हो, यू टॉक अबाउट इट दैट हाउ नेपोलियन सिविल कोड इज अ लैंडमार्क in legal history of the world. One nation, one law. In every small thing. Because the complaint in France was that if you travel 5 kilometers, law changes. Right? Here, problem for the businessmen. That if you are operating in this part of India, some other law is there. If you are operating in that part of India, some other law is there. So the ease of doing business is not there. I have to keep 10 people to understand that if my goods are traveling from one place to another, if I am making FDI in one place, what are the laws? FDI in another place, what? So नहीं, one nation, जैसे one nation one tax हो गया, या फिर आपका IPC, CRPC, CPC हो गया, या फिर आपका नेपोलियन सिविल कोड हो गया. यूनिफॉर्मिटी इन लॉज, चाहे आपका DPSP में इन द डोमेन ऑफ सोसाइटी एंड कल्चर, रिलीजन में आपका यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड हो गया. यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड विल डील विद मैरिजेस, डिवोर्सेस, एटसेट्रा, सिविलियन लाइफ, right? Succession in the property, etc. So basically, uniformity in laws and administration, it is considered, usually it is considered a feature of good governance, right? So therefore, when huge number of Britishers are coming, so there are complaints, Britishers are complaining that why there is no uniformity of law in India, why as the place changes, law changes, right? Plus when you have to manage a huge, right, for example, when you just took the room, yahi pe rehte ho rent mein, when you just took the room, things are fine. But as UPSC syllabus is moving on, so many books, so many magazines, so many newspapers are gradually getting accumulated in your room. So when your empire of UPSC preparation is rising, you also feel a need that there needs to be some system of cataloging these books. यहाँ पे मैं अपने पॉलिटी के नोट्स रखूंगा, यहाँ पॉलिटी की किताब होगी, यहाँ पे economics होगी, ऐसा some organization. So basically when your territory increased, so therefore the Britishers, they felt कि hodgepodge है, we need a single law for this, so that we are able to better manage, this India, right? So उस प्रकार से, so that is why this particular need is being felt, right? Next point item, therefore GG Bengal was elevated to, ELEVATED, GG Bengal was elevated to GG of India, Governor General of India. GG Bengal was elevated to Governor General of India. With direct control over all of British India's, civil, military and revenue matters. Direct control over all of British India's civil, military, revenue matters. Plus GGI in council. Empowered to make laws for whole of British India. GGI in council empowered to make laws for whole of British India. And these laws to be applicable to all persons. British or Indian. These laws to be applicable to all persons, dash British or Indians, right? Equality before law was promised, right? Next, GGI became executive head of British India. Next point, GGI became executive head of British India. And now there was centralization of legislative and executive authority in GGI. Now there was centralization of legislative and executive authority in GGI. Next point, legislative powers of GBO, and GMA taken away. Legislative powers of GBO and GMA, Governors of Bombay and Madras, taken away. Therefore, centralization that began in 1773. Therefore, centralization in GG that began in 1773 peaked in 1833. Next point, one law member dash Thomas Macaulay. One law member dash Thomas Macaulay dash one law member Thomas Macaulay added to Governor General of India's Council, added to GGI's council. One law member Thomas Macaulay dash added to GGI's council. So what will be the purpose of this particular person? He will be a person in charge of making laws. That means for the first time special task is given. Earlier all of you are members of the Governor General's Council. I am the Governor General. हम सब मिल बैठ के laws भी बनाएंगे. Will also act as legislature, will also act as executive. No special responsibility. But now one person is added to GGI's council whose primary focus will be making of laws. Why? Uniform law चाहिए ना, तो कोई तो इंडिया में बनाए नेपोलियनिक सिविल कोड. There should be some person who drafts IPC, CRPC, CPC for the whole of India, है ना? तो कौन होगा वो बंदा? This person, right? Because you want uniformity of law, so it is a very big task. One person with special responsibility of laws in India, right? तो क्या हम कह सकते हैं that grain of separation of power was introduced. Grain मतलब चिन्ना सा दाना. There is a difference. There is a sentence, separation of power was introduced. Another sentence is grain of separation of power was introduced. Right? So grain means chinna sa, just small beginning of something. Right? So write down, therefore, grain of SOP means separation of powers. Grain of separation of powers. इन ब्रैकेट स्टार लगा के फ्यूचर में एसओपी लिख लेंगे. ग्रेन ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स. जब भी आपसे कोई पूछे ना सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई आस्क यू क्वेश्चन, इज देयर सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर इन इंडिया? काय का यस. दिस क्वेश्चन इज इनकम्प्लीट. द राइट क्वेश्चन इज सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर एट व्हाट लेवल. At what level is very important. Separation of power at what level, right? So for example, separation of power at what level? So here you see that we are introducing a grain of separation, but at what level? Not at the level of GGI. His council is going to have multiple members. One of the member is a law member. So who is the legislative authority? Governor General of India. Who is the executive authority? Governor General of India. So where there is separation of power, you tell me? But if I focus at this level, now I can say that these people, they focus on executive matters and this person focuses on legislative matters. That means at the level of GGI's council members, there is introduction of grain of separation of power. Not at his level. He is the boss of everyone. So he has all the legislative powers, he has all the executive powers. So separation of power at what level? That kind of scenario, right? So you should think like this, right? So write down, therefore grain of separation of power within GGI's council. Within GGI's council. In brackets डाला के, not at level of GGI. In brackets डाला के, not at level of GGI, brackets closed. Not at level of GGI. Yeah, he is the boss, no? He is the final legal authority, he is the final executive authority. So therefore, आप लिख सकते हैं इसको, we can also write down, bracket में स्टार लगा के जो हम लिख रहे हैं, not at level of GGI, as he heads legislature as well as executive, as he heads legislature as well as executive function, as he heads legislature, legislative as well as executive functions, as he heads legislative as well as executive functions. तो उसके लेवल पे तो नहीं है, ब्रैकेट इज क्लोज्ड. सो सेंटेंस अब बनेगा हमारा, देयरफॉर ग्रीन ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स विद इन जीजीआई's काउंसिल, ब्रैकेट बिटवीन एग्जीक्यूटिव, लिखिए, बिटवीन एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड लेजिस्लेटिव फंक्शंस इंट्रोड्यूस्ड, बिटवीन एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड लेजिस्लेटिव फंक्शंस इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. सेंटेंस बन गया हमारा, ग्रीन ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर विद इन जीजीआई's काउंसिल बिटवीन एग्जीक्यूटिव एंड लेजिस्लेटिव फंक्शंस इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. हाँ जी, अरे वो तो बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल था, वो तो लंदन चले गए आप, इंडिया आ जाओ, इंडिया अभी वीजा नहीं लगा आपका. वो बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल था, 2 जूनियर मेंबर्स वाला बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल था, वो लंदन में था. अभी इंडिया आ जाओ, बड़े बाहर जाने का शौक है, इंडिया कम बैक टू इंडिया. हाँ 1786 से है. हाँ 1786 से है वीटो पावर. मेंबर्स में देख के बता दूंगा कितने एग्जैक्टली मेंबर्स है, बट ठीक है, मोर और लेस इतना ही मान के चल सकते हैं कि 3 मेंबर्स प्लस 1, 4 मेंबर्स ऐसा मान के एक बार देखना पड़ेगा. ठीक, अब ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के लिखिए, ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के लिखिए. तो एक्चुअली हुआ क्या, देखिए, अगर हम सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स की बात करते हैं, राइट, सो देयरफॉर यू सी व्हेन वन लॉ मेंबर इज एडेड बाय द चार्टर ऑफ 1833, सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर एट व्हाट लेवल, एट जीजीआई काउंसिल लेवल, राइट. तो अगर इसको हम देखें, सो इन 1833 ग्रेन माने कि वन लॉ मेंबर, right? So therefore can we say that this is nothing but pregnancy? This is nothing but pregnancy. ठीक, कॉन्सेप्ट को समझने की कोशिश करिए. This is nothing but pregnancy. ठीक, अभी soon we'll be talking about 1853 charter. They will say that 6 more legal members were added. 6 more legal members were added to the council, right? So can we say that now in the council there are 7 people, or who are looking at the law, and rest of the members they will be looking at the executive, right? So can we say that size of legislature is increasing? So can we say this is like, क्या बनाना है, थर्ड ट्राइमेस्टर लगा लो इसको, थर्ड ट्राइमेस्टर, right? Size increasing. Imagine your tummy. In 1833 just one grain is there, right? Very small embryo, right? In 1853 6 more legal members are added, right? So therefore now your tummy is expanding, right? Then birth will take place. 1861 Indian Councils Act, for the first time birth takes place, right? So you have twins in your body, one's name is executive, another's name is legislative, right? Right now they are within your tummy. Birth will take place, right? So when birth takes place, a separate body comes out. Earlier they were part of same body. I am the Governor General of India. In my tummy, executive is there, legislative is also there, right? Birth will take place. 2 children will be born. I am still the mother, right? So therefore, what is there? 1861, what you call as Imperial Legislative Council plus Viceroy's Executive Council or Imperial Executive Council. Finally, 2 separate bodies. Finally, a separate body which is called legislature. Finally, a separate legislative body and a separate executive body, right? So this is what birth. My friends, this is birth of parliament in India. This is the journey has begun of a separate parliament and a separate council of ministers. Gradually things will change, many more changes will come, but एक separate body का होना जो specially law बनाएगी and a separate body which is acting as executive, this is that journey, right? So therefore, this is what is happening. This is the journey of birth of a separate body, parliament. This is how, when you study the legal history, you can also benefit in polity, right? This is how we are more moving towards modernism. पुराने समय में जब मोनार्क होता था, who is the parliament? Monarch is the parliament. Who is the prime minister? Monarch is the prime minister. Who is the chief justice of Supreme Court? Monarch is the chief justice of Supreme Court. Remember Maratha polity. Final decision making authority in judiciary was Peshwa. Concentration of power used to be there. Britishers came, but still concentration of power. In fact, initially तो बनाया गया concentration of power. मतलब everything is there, right? GG Bengal is also judiciary. Gradually now, at least in the matters of this thing is coming, right? At least in the matters of legislature and executive, separation of power is coming, right? A separate what you call as your Indian High Courts Act will come in 1861. That will create separate 3 high courts. So therefore you see separation of power properly, मतलब एक decent level पे आ रहा है यहाँ से, right? तो इसको आपने बना लिया, right? Anyways, next point write down. A law commission. A law commission. अभी यूनिफॉर्म लॉज लेके आने हैं. इफ यू हैव टू ब्रिंग यूनिफॉर्म लॉज, तो कुछ काम भी तो करना पड़ेगा ना उसके लिए. तो ये जो लीगल मेंबर ऐड किया है, what the legal member that we have added, law member that we have added, under him we need to set up a commission, right? A law commission was to be set up under the legal member. A law commission was to be set up. Was set up कर दो. Was set up under this legal member. Under this law member कर दो या legal कर दो जो भी है. For codification of laws. For codification of laws. For codification of laws. Which was completed by 1837. Which was completed by 1837. Which was completed by 1837. Full stop. However, deliberations and updation continued. However, deliberation and updation continued. And full implementation done after 1857, and full implementation done after 1857 in form of Civil Procedure Code 1859, in form of Civil Procedure Code 1859, comma, Indian Penal Code 1860, Indian Penal Code 1860, Civil Procedure Code 1859, Indian Penal Code 1860, and Criminal Procedure Code. Civil Procedure Code 1859, Indian Penal Code 1860, Criminal Procedure Code 1862. Criminal Procedure Code 1862. For layman understanding, let's say a crime takes place. So therefore, how should the police proceed? How should the police do each step? Example, if statement has to be taken, it has to be taken in form of a panchnama. Panchnama is to be drawn. Evidences has to be gathered. 2 witnesses have to be there. After that, charges needs to be framed. Sections need to be applied. Charge sheet needs to be filed. In this case, there can be arrest. In this case, there may not be an arrest. In this case, there may be a bail. In this case, it is a non-bailable offense, right? So therefore, all of these things, that is, once you become a police officer, IPS, आपको अच्छा IPS officer होने के लिए you would have to know the CRPC, because you would be taking the decision that which section of the CRPC, how it is to be applied. So therefore, procedure, how the police needs to proceed once there is intimation of crime. After that, what step-by-step things the police needs to do, what procedure the police needs to follow, right? For gathering evidences, for etc., right? Taking statements, seizing evidence, and all of these things, right? Making arrests. तो ऑल ऑफ दिस थिंग्स आर क्राइम सीन को कैसे क्या करना है, मतलब वो ये सब चीजें दे आर देयर इन द सीआरपीसी. सिमिलरली इफ देयर इज एनी सिविल डिस्प्यूट, लेट्स से प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट, मैरिटल डिस्प्यूट, एनी काइंड ऑफ डिस्प्यूट इज देयर, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रिलेटेड डिस्प्यूट, मैंने आपको लोन दिया आपने मेरे पैसे वापस नहीं किए, राइट. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो. सो ये सिविल प्रोसीजर, दैट इज इन विच केस हाउ टू प्रोसीड, राइट. सिविल अथॉरिटी हाउ इट विल प्रोसीड. एक्विजिशन ऑफ लैंड है, so therefore CPC can mention something, right, this kind of scenario. IPC, Indian Penal Code, it tells you for which crime which punishment, which crime what punishment, which crime what punishment. Penal Code. So what is the penalty for different types of crime. Later on there is this Indian Evidence Act also, which goes into detail ki how to collect evidence or what evidence are having merit, what are not having merit. So ek Indian Evidence Act bhi hai, right. So this is coming. So it is taking 20 years. Why? Because this was a new concept, because it was a new concept, and in Britain also they were developing some IPC, CRPC like things, and in India also simultaneously they were developing. So a lot of communication, patrachar used to take place. They were learning from each other कि क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. So it took time, right? So finally implemented, but commission was set up here, right? Basic draft बन गया था by 1837, but full implementation took place only after 1857. That is after 20 years. ठीक, तो इस प्रकार से. And this is uniform laws. So can we now say that we have a uniform IPC, uniform CPC, uniform CRPC for the whole of British India? So this is uniformity of laws, right? Next point, EIC lost monopoly over. EIC lost monopoly over trade with China. EIC lost monopoly over trade with China. EIC lost monopoly over trade with China and tea trade. Trade with China and tea trade. Therefore, commercial function of EIC. Therefore, commercial function of EIC ended. Therefore, commercial function of EIC ended. Therefore, commercial function of EIC ended. In bracket स्टार लगा के, that is not a company anymore. मतलब नाम में ही है company, not a company anymore. Brackets closed. Not a company anymore. Full stop. Therefore now EIC only had political function. Therefore now EIC only had political function. Therefore now EIC only had political function. That also as an agent. That also as an agent of British Crown. That also as an agent of British Crown. Next point, BOCs, Board of Control, जो लंदन वाला है. BOCs, supervisory powers extended to. BOCs, supervisory powers extended to. BOC's supervisory powers extended to all administrative affairs, all administrative affairs, all administrative affairs in India, all administrative affairs in British India, all administrative affairs in British India. Ibrahim Stalagal ki earlier CMR, earlier CMR, earlier CMR, now day-to-day administration as well. Earlier CMR, now day-to-day administration as well. Example, earlier CMR, now day-to-day administration as well. Example, appointment, transfer, laws, rules, etc. Bracket is closed. माने कि अब वो छोटी छोटी चीजें भी they can monitor. किसको अपॉइंट करना है, कैसे अपॉइंट करना है, these things, administrative workers also. Next point, president of BOC, now called Minister for Indian Affairs. President of BOC now called Minister for Indian Affairs. बस थोड़ी सी औकात स्टेटस दिखाने के लिए. President of BOC now called Minister for Indian Affairs. Minister for Indian Affairs. Next point. Judiciary open to Indians. Judiciary opened to Indians. माने कि Indians they can be judges. Judiciary opened to Indians. Next, lower civil services. Lower civil services. That is uncovenanted. Lower civil services. That is uncovenanted civil services. Lower civil services. That is uncovenanted CS. Uncovenanted civil services. Opened to Indians. Opened to Indians. माने कि आज के टाइम पे एसएससी और यूपीएससी होता है तो एक तरह से एसएससी खोल दिया. एसएससी इंडियंस दे कैन ज्वाइन, राइट. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, चार्टर ऑफ 1853. नेक्स्ट हेडिंग, चार्टर ऑफ 1853. चार्टर ऑफ 1853. सर्वर क्वेश्चन लिखो अभी. चार्टर ऑफ 1853 क्लास के बाद पूछ लेना. चार्टर ऑफ 1853. First sub point, this renewed the charter. This renewed the charter. This renewed the charter, but not for 20 years. This renewed the charter, but not for 20 years. And only till Parliament otherwise, only till Parliament otherwise specifies. But only till Parliament otherwise specifies. But only till Parliament otherwise specifies. Therefore now a sword hanging, but only till Parliament otherwise specifies. Parliament otherwise specifies. Therefore now a sword hanging on neck of EIC. Therefore now a sword hanging on neck of EIC. माने कल पार्लियामेंट का सेशन हो जाए and parliament can simply say charter ends, charter ends. That means no assurance is there. I had given you an example of that laptop ना, right? अब वो बैटरी डेड हो चुकी है, जैसे ही तार निकाला बैट खत्म, right? So this kind of scenario, sword hanging on the neck of EIC. Next point, big blow to EIC. Big blow to EIC. As now, big blow to EIC, BLOW, big blow to EIC, as now, patronage of EIC was ended. Patronage of EIC was ended. As now, patronage of EIC was ended. Patronage क्या होता है? Power of appointment, appointing, नौकरी देने की ताकत. Mansabdar, client patron relationship. Who was the patron? Mughal emperor. He made people IAS, made Mansabdars. Right? A private company can appoint anyone. But what if there is exam? Your UPSC exam is being introduced. And now, those who clear the exam, only they will become EIC officials. Right? So, here. Big blow to EIC, as patronage of EIC was ended. क्या लिखा हमने? ये लिखा ना? Was ended. As civil services exam, as civil services exam, as civil services exam introduced, as civil services exam introduced by Charter 1853. Civil services exam introduced by Charter 1853. In brackets, first exam held 1855. First exam held 1855. Brackets closed. टाइम लगता है ना प्रिपेयर करने में, ठीक है? तो लीगल एम्पावरमेंट ऐसा. And from now on, EIC hardly controlled policies in India. And from now on, EIC hardly controlled policies in India. Hardly controlled policies in India. Hardly controlled policies in India. Next point, separation of power introduced. तब ग्रेन अब था, अब प्रॉपर है. Separation of power introduced within GGI council. Separation of power introduced within GGI council. Separation of power introduced within GGI council. As 6 more legal members यहां पे आपने लिखा था देखिए, as 6 more legal members were added. 6 more legal members were added. 6 more legal members were added. Next point. Since Indians could give CS exam, since Indians could give CS exam, therefore, since Indians could give CS exam, therefore, covenanted CS, covenanted civil services, covenanted माने ग्रुप है UPSC, covenanted civil services opened to Indians. Since Indians could give CS exam, therefore, covenanted civil services माने ग्रुप A, your UPSC, IAS, IPS, etc. Covenanted civil services opened to Indians. Opened to Indians. Last item. Government of India Act 1858. Government of India Act 1858. Government of India GOI Act 1858 slash Act for Better Government of India. Act for Better Government of India 1858. Act for Better Government of India 1858. 1858. 1858. Act for Better Government of India 1858. Write down administratively. Administratively more continuation than change. Administratively more continuation than change. Act for Better Government of India. Administratively more continuation than change. मतलब कुछ ज़्यादा खास नहीं हुआ. Administratively more continuation than change. Basically nothing happened. Private people got government job. AIC rule was ended. So therefore सबके नाम वाम थोड़े change हो गए. Advice. The only big change that is taking place is that your this thing, your dual control of top man in India is ended, right? तो बस वही है. Administratively more continuation than change. Next point. President of BOC. President of BOC replaced by Secretary of State for India. Replaced by Secretary of State for India. ब्रैकेट में स्टार लगा के SOS फॉर इंडिया लिख लेना. प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ BOC जिसको हम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडियन अफेयर्स भी कह सकते हैं, इट्स ओके. रिप्लेस्ड बाय सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट फॉर इंडिया. माने कि अब पोस्ट है ये, इसको कोट्स में लिख लो. जैसे मिनिस्टर ऑफ फाइनेंस होता है इसी प्रकार से प्रॉपर पोस्ट है. प्रॉपर पोस्ट इज देयर सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट फॉर इंडिया. एक तरीके से यू हैव मेड अ प्रॉपर मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया, राइट? सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट फॉर इंडिया. प्लस he was now to be main authority. He was now to be main authority. He was now to be main authority and director of policy. He was now to be main authority and director of policy. Director of policy in India. Director of policy in India. मतलब for India. Director of policy for India. है तो वो लंदन में क्योंकि. Next. BOC 1784. BOC 1784 replaced by BOC 1784 replaced by India Council. India Council slash Council of India. India Council slash Council of India. That was to have 15 members. That was to have 15 members. That was to have 15 members. In brackets स्टार लगा के 7 COD members. 7 COD members absorbed into it. 7 COD members absorbed into it. 7 COD. So basically COD had 24 members, उसमें से 7 को उन्होंने कहा for having some kind of continuity because you have guys have experience, so therefore ठीक है, you become part of it, right? उस प्रकार से in bracket 7 COD members absorbed into it. क्या लिखा हमने उससे पहले, ब्रैकेट से पहले? हाँ, was to have 15 members plus headed by SOS for India, plus headed by SOS for India, plus headed by SOS for India. Next point, dual control of GG, dual control of GG ended, dual control of GG ended, as he now reported only to, dual control of GG ended, as he now reported only to, as he now reported only to SOS for India, as he now reported only to SOS for India. मतलब सिर्फ एक ही बॉस है. As he now reported only to SOS for India. Next point, GG renamed as Viceroy. GG renamed as Viceroy. GG renamed as Viceroy. Next point, no change in powers of GG. No change in powers of GG. No change in powers of GG. Next, sovereignty of India. Sovereignty of India now with British Crown. Sovereignty of India now with British Crown. And B.S. Zafar 3757. Bahadur Shah Zafar 3757. Pensioned off to Burma, Rangoon. Pensioned off to Burma. Pensioned off to Burma. Therefore, legally Mughal rule ended in 1858. Therefore, legally pensioned off to Burma. Therefore, legally Mughal rule ended in 1858. Legally Mughal rule ended in 1858. Next point. Policy of subordinate isolation. Policy of subordinate isolation. Policy of subordinate isolation. That is, policy of paramountcy. Policy of subordinate isolation. That is, policy of paramountcy. Replaced by policy of subordinate union. Replaced by policy of subordinate union. As now, policy of subordinate union. भाई यूनियन माने कि आन मिलो सजना, यूनियन हो गया हमारा, ठीक है. दैट मीन्स अब वो एक पार्ट ऑफ फैमिली बन जाएंगे, ठीक है. एज नाउ पैरामाउंटसी, एज नाउ पैरामाउंटसी was legally established, as now paramountcy was legally established between Indian princes, double S नहीं है, single S है, between Indian princes and crown, between Indian princes and crown, between Indian princes and crown. Therefore Indian princes, therefore Indian rulers lost, therefore Indian rulers, ऐसा कर दो, therefore Indian rulers slash princely states, Indian rulers slash princely states, princely states क्या के ब्रैकेट्स में लिख लो, 565 PS, 565 princely states, in ब्रैकेट स्टार लगा के 565 PS princely states. Indian rulers slash princely states legally part of British Empire in India, legally part of British Empire in India, legally part of British Empire in India. Legally part of British Empire in India. Last line. Via Royal Titles Act 1876. Via Royal Titles Act 1876. Via Royal Titles Act 1876. Queen was empowered. Queen was empowered via Royal Titles Act 1876. आप पहले लिख चुके हो पॉइंट. Via Royal Titles Act 1876, Queen was empowered to take title of. Queen was empowered to take title of Kesari Hind. Queen was empowered to take title of Kesari Hind. Kesari Hind. Full stop. In 1877, Delhi/Imperial Darbar. In 1877, Delhi/Imperial Darbar. Delhi/Imperial Darbar. Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria got corona. Got coronated. Tajposhi. Queen Victoria got coronated as Kesari Hind. Queen Victoria got coronated as Kesari Hind. In bracket star लगा के was using title. Was using the title since 1858. Was using the title since 1858. Was using the title because sovereignty तो आई गई है, तो बस एक नाम जैसा होता है ना भाई, नाम एक हो गया, तो उस प्रकार से 1858, right? So therefore this is for today's class. Next class will take up EIC administration, right? So topic for next class is EIC administration. हाँ जी. हाँ जी, पॉलिसी ऑफ सबऑर्डिनेट यूनियन. नहीं नहीं, ये हमने आपको पहले भी बनवाया है. क्राउन के अंडर आ गया. एक ब्रिटिश इंडिया है और यहाँ पे 565 प्रिंसी स्टेट है, तो अब ये फैमिली का बात बन गया ना. ये मम्मी बन गई क्वीन विक्टोरिया, ये प्रिंस बन गया, तो एक फैमिली का पार्ट बने तो यूनियन हो गया. 1853 में. 1853 से 1858 EIC कराएगी. 1858 के बाद गवर्नमेंट ऑफ ब्रिटेन कराएगी. नहीं, जो लॉज, द लॉज दैट विल बी मेड बाय द वाइसरॉय, दे विल नॉट बी अप्लाइड इन प्रिंसली स्टेट. प्रिंसली स्टेट दे विल हैव देयर ओन डोमेस्टिक लॉज. So therefore whatever Indian national movement etc, whatever we study, it is only for the British India. Legally माने they are, by earlier their father was Mughal emperor, now their mother is Queen Victoria, so they are legally part of a new family now. That's why you are using the word prince for them. Prince is child of king and queen. एक सेकंड, let me answer the question. If there are some online student present तो मैं उनके क्वेश्चन आंसर कर दूंगा. Sir, in Hyderabad handout it is mentioned that in 1738 Nizam was defeated by Marathas, but in 1737 Bajirao attacked Delhi in 1737. So my question is, was it 1738 or 1728? No, it is 1738 only. First in 1737 Bajirao is attacking Delhi. After that in 1738 your this thing is there. ठीक है, तो multiple times battles are taking place ना. 1728 भी था, 1738 भी था. Sir, when orders come from Board of Control, will GG Bengal report to COD or to BOC? To BOC. If my commissioner is giving me an order, if I am SHO and my DGP is giving me an order, so will I go to DGP or will I go to my SP? SP को मैं शायद साइड से अप्लाई बता दूं, but मैं I'll rush to the even house of DGP to tell him, sir, this is the situation, है ना. तो obviously, sir, we can say Orientalism present here. Orientalism after in 1813, Orientalism gradually dies a death, right? Why all these regulation and acts were not introduced all over British states in India, but only in Bengal? Well, because GG Bengal is GG Bengal. and Bengal is like main for them. So it was Cornwallis is present in Bengal, na? So that is why. Sir, zoom it slightly. Yes, sir. Sir, at one time, as EIC has more powerful military than government of Britain, so why they do not provide resistance to the government? Why? Because you see, since 1773, since 1784, the person who can take this decision that let me provide resistance to the government, those people are agents of the British state, na? After 1784, Governor General, Governor of Bombay, Governor of Madras, and Commander-in-Chief of EIC Army. These are all pappus of the British state. वो तो उनके followers हैं. Why they will revolt? So therefore, इसकी चीज की वजह से. Sir, the use of phrase British possessions in India and Pitt's India Act won't be considered as the first time where concept of absentee sovereignty was introduced. Yes, we can say that. Yes, in a way we can say. But वो grain है. Proper writing में पहली बार 1793 चार्टर में लिख के दिया उन्होंने, है ना? But sir, EIC was part of Britain. Yes. Is Board of Control was afraid that EIC may turn their back and declare themselves independent from BOC? Yes. Not just BOC, but like BOC is nothing but the British state. So yes, after 1783 United States of America, ये fear हमेशा था कि कहीं इंडिया में भी वो ना हो जाए जो US में हो गया. Is this the answer of 1857 revolt acted as a catalyst for end of EIC rule? Yes. So see, by the time period of 1853, we have seen कि कंपनी क्या ही बची है यार. 1853 में पेट्रोनेट चली गई, 1833 में it has stopped being a company, 1813 में it has lost monopoly over trade with India except for tea trade. तो बचा क्या है? कुछ नहीं बचा. उसका रूल तो खत्म हो ही रहा था. वो तो 1857 रिवोल्ट नहीं होता, कुछ और होता तो हो जाता. When charter is not renewed for 20 years, so therefore the sword can fall at any point of time. Just that 1857 रिवोल्ट ने वो रस्सी काट दी और वो खचाक नीचे गिर गया, गर्दन कट गई. Adam Smith also gave absolute cost advantage theory and advocated free trade that led to open market for British their colonies. Gagan is saying, ठीक है भाई, तुम्हारा स्वैग है, तुम ऐसी ऐसी बातें करके थोड़ा मुझे पहले बोलनी चाहिए थी क्लास में. अब तो क्लास में कोई बचा नहीं है, ठीक है? तुम नहीं तो तुम्हारा अब ऐसे क्या डरा रहे हो यार, तुमने थोड़ी इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ रही है. एब्सोल्यूट कॉस्ट एडवांटेज थ्योरी यार इतना नहीं पता मैं, ठीक है? मान लिया भाई तुम्हारा. Sir, by 2027 will be third, sir. Okay. Sir, how did such a small country like Britain had an edge over other countries that it ruled so many countries? Because of naval power. Because of naval power and because of industrial revolution. Two answers are there. Navy and industrial revolution. What was the rationale of removing Chancellor of Exchequer from BOC? Simply, the Chancellor of Exchequer is kind of like, maybe he's considered junior to the Secretary of State, who is like a cabinet level minister. तो जूनियर को हटा दिया और सीनियर को कंटिन्यू कर लिया, राइट? Was application crashed in between? Why only tea, sir? Tea is important because tea trade is Assam tea plantations they were set up, so tea is monetarily important. Sir, please try to give mind maps as of previous class. It helped. Mind maps as of अब इसका तो बनाना पड़ेगा. I can give. Sir, why British government left these two monopoly of EIC? Why they did not take these two? So क्यों नहीं लिया? चाइना का क्यों नहीं लिया? इंडिया का क्यों ले लिया? बिकॉज चाइना में कंपनी डिड नॉट हैव एनी पॉलिटिकल पावर, शायद वो रीजन होगा. कंपनी वॉज प्योरली अ बिजनेसमैन इन चाइना, ठीक है ना? इंडिया में क्यों लिया, चाइना में क्यों नहीं लिया, पता नहीं. मे बी हो सकता है कॉटन में बी द रीजन. रॉ कॉटन कमिंग फ्रॉम इंडिया बिकॉज इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन वॉज टेकिंग प्लेस बेस्ड ऑन टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर एंड फ्रॉम इंडिया रॉ कॉटन वॉज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द ब्रिटिश फैक्ट्रीज. सो दैट कैन बी अ रीजन कि EIC को कम से कम पहले इंडिया से हटाओ. हाँ. सर, डिफरेंस बिटवीन बेंचमार्क एंड लैंडमार्क? भाई लैंडमार्क माने कि एक माइलस्टोन, ऐसा मतलब एक इम्पॉर्टेंट. बेंचमार्क इज लाइक वो भी सेम सही है, बट क्या बोले, बेंचमार्क इज स्टैंडर्ड, राइट? स्टैंडर्ड फॉर जजिंग समथिंग, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, ये इतना अच्छा स्टूडेंट दैट ही हैज बिकम माई बेंचमार्क फॉर जजिंग ऑल अदर स्टूडेंट्स, राइट? तो तुम मुझसे पूछते हो सर एम आई गुड स्टूडेंट, पहले मैं तुमसे कंपेयर करता हूँ इसको, ठीक है? रेफरेंस पॉइंट. लैंडमार्क इज समथिंग एक बहुत बड़ा इवेंट टाइप से, माइलस्टोन, है ना? वॉज GGI रूलिंग इंडिया इन इंडियन वे? अब नहीं, 1833 में ही GGI आ रहा है, तब तक तो ओरिएंटलिज्म खत्म हो चुका. Sir, after 20 years, when Charter Act renewed, does they implement new points or continue as it is? मुझे समझ नहीं आया. When GBO and GMA got legislative power, 1861 में वापस उनको दी गई थी. DPST नहीं है, DPSP है. डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी, दैट इज सम डायरेक्शंस गिवन बाय द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन टू द गवर्नमेंट दैट आपको ये करना चाहिए, तो उस प्रकार से। सर आफ्टर चार्टर एक्ट 1833 विल जीजीआई डेलीगेट द अफेयर्स ऑफ बंगाल और ही विल सी अफेयर्स ऑफ बंगाल अलोंग विद, वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन, ये मिस हो गया मेरे से। सो एक्चुअली आफ्टर ही विल लुक एट बोथ द अफेयर्स, राइट, सो ही विल एक्ट एज चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑफ बंगाल plus he will act as Prime Minister of India. After Charter Act of 1853, Dalhousie was empowered and Dalhousie appointed LG of Bengal to deburden himself. So separate CM आया after 1853. Sir, does GGI also has legislative power like Thomas, or do Thomas alone makes laws? नहीं, obviously GGI is the boss. Thomas तो उसका नौकर है. Now, sir, we can say that the two different levels of courts which was at Calcutta. So can we say that this law is applicable to despite all of the religion? Yes. Can we say that separation of power started by forming of Supreme Court in Bengal by separation of judiciary power? यार proper तो नहीं है वो, यही नहीं, separation of power तो यहीं पे ही बोला जाता है, books चार्टर ऑफ 1833 को ही बोलते हैं सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, और चार्टर 1813 को बोला जाता है ग्रेन ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, ऐसा नहीं ठीक बोल, मैं हमेशा कंफ्यूज हो जाता हूँ इन दोनों में, ये था ना, हाँ 1833 में ग्रेन है, 1853 में सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर है, राइट, तो ये है। हाँ भाई आप पूछो।